Hello, Fredo fan club. I love him. I love him so much. Do you see how strong he is? I'll show you. There you go. Guys, did you not know Fredo's strong? I love that this is very clearly, because this is him rebranding his channel, right? So this is like his branding choice for his channel, which is, I think it's quite funny. I could take Fredo. What, take him on a date? I could take him on a date. I've forgotten why he said he was leaving Overwatch. Yeah, I think it was slightly to do with his reaction to 6v6. I don't think he's really taken it on board that the public just didn't like his opinions rather than anything else. The community was reacting to his opinions being bad and him being condescending towards the 6v6 crowd more than anything else. And he's kind of like boxed that off in his mind, in my opinion, as a kind of like, I was doing this because I had to instead of because it was true. Somehow. Yeah, I really want him to say at some point his actual opinions on 6v6 versus 5v5. He's been entirely consistent. He thinks that hero bans keep the diversity of hero kits without forcing you to box stuff off and remove certain stuff because that stuff becomes oppressive. So you can keep diversity in high ranks and low ranks. Like, you can keep Widow really strong in the high ranks and even maybe buff them so they're okay in the low ranks if you have hero bans. And I think that's true. He's not wrong about that. But in terms of the majority of the balancing in the game, he's kind of not right that this has happened, if you get what I mean. I can't think of a single character, well, I can think of maybe Soja and Overwatch 2, that have actually been changed because they are good in the high ranks. Most of the changes to Overwatch have been specifically low rank based. I'd like him to once ever admit he was wrong. I'm sure people that watch me think the same about me though. And I admit that I'm wrong loads of the time. Maybe he does in separate bits that we don't see. Oh, you're never going to make a video on your main channel and say you're wrong in it, unless that's the big picture. You said you've been wrong? Yeah, but people watching my YouTube don't necessarily know that. Watched the first 10 minutes of this podcast and I got the feeling he hosted it so he could be included in all of them. Well, I'm fine with that. I like listening to Fredo. Ironically, when he's on a topic that is not 6v6 and stuff like that, I feel like I actually feel like when he's on a podcast, he's more cogent than when he's not on a podcast, to be honest. When he's making videos, he's going off bullet points and just letting his brain run wild in one take and then editing it. When your videos are 70% downvoted, and you feel like quitting because of the backlash, you should self-reflect as a main video. Yeah, probably. Address criticism and comments reasonably. Yeah, he was pretty bad in the comment section there. I feel like, and I know I do this quite a lot of the time. I feel like it's the same with Fredo. Maybe we're more similar than we let on. When people disagree with me, quite a lot of the time, I feel like they haven't understood my argument. And maybe that's more true in my case than it is with Fredo's. Maybe people did understand Fredo's argument, but I feel like that's the box that he puts people in, and that's why he's so indignant sometimes. Nobody can understand Fredo's argument? Yes, but it's the same response, right? It's the same response. And I feel like that really turns people off. And I really try and guard myself against it for the most part and ask people for clarifications of my argument instead of saying they're wrong.
Should have been giving him a raise. All right, we're starting the podcast regular now. Run it down, as titled by the legend Spylo after our inaugural Season 0 episode, similar to Marvel Rivals. Talking about hero shooters in general, and have two that are competing. Battle of the Titans, Godzilla versus King Kong, or maybe a little Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson, depending on which patch we're on. That's a pretty bomb reference, I think. But
yeah, the road
Overwatch
down.
Spotlight announced a whole lot of things, and then we're also entering the second half of Season 1 of Marvel Rivals, and I just want to do a bit of compare and contrast on the trajectory of both games. So I got some of the best minds in all of hero shooters to discuss this with me. Two of our hosts are returning from
and me
first episode, so first introduce Yeetle, not only the progenitor of the Wrecking Ball playstyle, I would say, from Overwatch 1, but also a killer streamer, as well as most
Rolf is here, inserting himself into my podcast against my will, despite the fact that I don't like him because we disagree on almost everything. Yeah.
Making some of the most bomb and optimistic Overwatch content on the internet. It can be done. So, what's up, Yeetle? Welcome.
Yo, what up? I'm Yeetle. I'm decent at Overwatch. I play the game sometimes, and yeah, Fredo gave me an awesome intro, so glad to be here.
Great. And the best hair on the podcast, of course, is going to go to our pop star in the bottom left corner.
Well, its hair's being cut off, to be fair. It's not the best hair on the podcast.
Spylo, explain your background for us.
It's the Percocet meme. You guys, I linked it in the chat there. It's Aaron Keller doing his best Super Bowl halftime show impression, and the guy killed it. I'll say that much.
Awesome,
I will not
awesome.
elaborate further.
Oh yeah, I think I saw this on Reddit, which was like Aaron singing something about Perks. I don't know. It was a rap song. I don't into rap anyway.
Yeah, I don't get it. It makes me want to.
It was a good meme.
It reminds me of Backstreet Boys. That's what I think when I see
You're
it.
gonna have to check the Twitter link after the podcast over. You'll get it then. You'll get it then.
Just
Turning-
don't play it
I
on
get it.
stream, otherwise you will get the DMCA.
You will get the MCA.
I'm sure
You
someone
will
can
get
find
the
it in chat.
MCA, Yes.
Gotcha. All right, I want to angle the show a little bit towards my intro to Avril, because I think you started shoutcasting for the other hero
True.
shooter game as well, right? How did that go?
I'm Thanos. I'm collecting all the hero shooters on my Infinity Gauntlet. That being said, some of them I will probably never get at this stage, and I don't know if I necessarily want to get them, but I'm like Thanos light. I only need like a couple, like 2 to 3 stones. I'm good. I don't need all of them. You know, I think that's just too greedy. I don't need to snap the whole universe. Just a couple of stones.
Let's start with the yap
I
first.
think space is a good one, and space and power, and that's not space or reality. That's all I need. I can teleport anywhere I
You
want.
collected-
I can just change
collected the
reality.
kidney
I don't
stone?
need everything else.
I feel like
again,
time's a
the
pretty
kidney
powerful
stone,
one.
Admiral. Have you collected the kidney stone yet?
So fun fact, I've actually had a kidney stone before, and that is the most painful thing I think I've ever gone through in my life.
Let's go
Doesn't sound fun.
1.25 times speed
It-
through the yapping.
Trust me, it felt like I was gonna stab.
Otherwise, we'll be
I
here
felt
all
like-
day.
I remember like I went to the hospital and the nurse was like, how does
When
this
Avril snapped, all tanks disappear from hero shooters. Yeah, true.
feel
Oh.
on a scale of
Avril is the most hero shooter guy that does not like one of the fundamental core components of hero shooters that I've ever seen.
Like,
Just
I can't remember
remove
what
them.
the
It's
zero was,
fine,
or, like,
guys.
it's not
Just
painful
remove
at
the
all to,
tanks.
like,
Don't be stupid.
you're getting stabbed. I'm like, well, I've never been stabbed before, so maybe that, but something like that. And I'm also the guy who's like, I have a pretty high pain tolerance, so they ask me
Yeah, I've heard that kidney stones are the most painful things ever. Yeah, compared to giving birth.
0 to 10. I'm like, oh, well, I don't want to seem like a bitch, so I'm gonna say 8 instead of 10 because I don't want to seem like I'm in too much pain. But I was in a lot of pain. I just put on a brave face, said 8 instead of 10. I wanted to. I already, my intro is like 10 minutes long already. But you brought up Jake Paul, Mike Tyson. By the way, I just want to say that's slanderous to both Overwatch and Marvel Rivals. I don't think either of these
I was gonna
names
say, there's
want
no
to
winner for
be
this.
attached to either of those two guys. So just real quick.
Possibly. We'll see.
It was funny though. It was funny.
Yeah, it's yet to be seen, I think, and that's what we're going to try to chart through this conversation. I want to start talking about Marvel Rivals a bit because I think most of the conversation of the rest of the show is going to be about the Overwatch Spotlight. So Marvel Rivals came out with its 1.5 balance patch that's going to come out with the rest of the next 2 heroes, the Thing and the Human Torch. And at least for me personally, I am so hyped about the design of this game because I feel like every time a hero comes out with Marvel Rivals, I'm not really afraid that they're going to break the game in a fundamental way because the game is so wacky already. But then on top of that, specifically,
break the game in a way. Like, I don't know, dude. Like, I'm concerned every time that they break the game. I'm concerned that it's already broken and we're just waiting for people to realize, to be quite honest. But you know,
those 2 designs I think are quite interesting because you've got a frontliner tank who can't be CC'd by Wolverine, thank goodness, and then you have like an AoE nuker who kind of counteracts some of the AoE healing that was going on as well. The multi-support things you think would be kind of counteracted by that. So
I didn't think that. No, that's not true. Like, surely the Flash is not gonna counteract AoE healing. Why would it? And what? AoE nukers counteracting AoE healing? Surely AoE healing counteracts AoE nukers. What? That doesn't make sense.
watched the recent competitive tournaments and stuff, so I'm gonna shoot it over to Avril just to give me kind of a report of how do you feel that game's operating from your point of view.
Yeah, it just makes AoE healing even more needed. It's kind of the opposite. He's right about the Wolverine thing. I mean, there's a character you can play when the enemy team's played Wolverine in the tank role now, which I guess is good. I mean, can we just say that the Wolverine concept is probably bad to start with, but you know.
Given your perspective, casting both games as well, like
it's really interesting with Fredo because I get the impression from him that he really wants these games, and he goes by the same point as me. He wants these games to be as diverse in the type of characters that can be made as possible, and somehow that sits in his head at the same time as the 5v5 opinion. I don't know how that happened, but he seems to think that there's a hero band part of his brain that is like diversity and crazy things and do whatever, and then there's 5v5 which is like, well, you make it a more focused experience and kill the diversity and the types of things that can be created and make it so it's not a team comp builder kind of thing. And like these two things are just like in his head at the same time. I don't know how he'd mesh them together if you asked him, but it seems pretty contradictory to me.
Wherever you want to go into it from there.
Yeah, so for those that don't know, I'm officially a Marvel's
Human Torch AoE damage has virtually no downtime. Oh, don't worry, Tiefling, they're just gonna ban him permanently. Yeah, he's just gonna be perma-banned if he's actually good. It's awful to play into. No, he's just gonna be permabanned, so it doesn't matter.
Marvel Rivals casted now. I've cast both Marvel Rivals and Overwatch. And I gotta be careful what I say here because I want to keep casting Marvel Rivals, so I'm gonna try and be extremely fair. And I gotta suck up to my new Overlord. See, I can't. If anyone calls me a shill, I'm shilling both ways now. So anyway, the point is,
I can't tell if he's joking. Actually, like, can you tell if Avril's joking there? I feel like obviously he's tongue in cheek in it and making it into a little bit of a joke. But is he actually joking, or does he have bad opinions about rivals that he's not saying today? Like, question mark? Maybe that's me being a bit cynical, but it sounds more like one thing than the other.
there is a lot that I like about the competitive side, the pro side of Marvel Rivals.
Spilo's background, yes. Spilo's background. Who cares about copyright ID? We need Spilo's background. I don't know what song this is. I assume it's called Perks. It's actually worse quality than my edit for my subscriber thing. Yeah, terrible joke, but also a good joke.
I think it has a long way to go. Part of the long way to go is the fact that it needs to solve watchability in terms of things on the UI, just spectating tools in general. But beyond that as well, it's the type of game that right now is for all the, if you remember all the complaints that people had of Overwatch, like, oh, this
You're
is
just saying he likes both games? Yeah. I feel like he's going to sit between and not choose a game over another. Yeah.
too much going on at the same time. It's too messy. You know, it's too hard to follow, even for the people that play the game. I think Marvel Rivals definitely suffers from some of those issues. That's not like to say the game is not fun to watch or can't be followed. It's just there's difficulty there. Like if you want,
I think Rivals is the most 5v5 6v6 game I've ever seen, which is the weirdest thing. Hey Hoover, yeah, it's like got all the downsides of 5v5 without the upsides of 6v6 in my mind, because there are some of the upsides, but quite a lot of the upsides were the tank synergy, which is purposely not in the game anyway.
I don't know if any of you guys have tried to watch the pro Marvel Rivals from any of the MRC Marvel Rivals Championships or Marvel Rivals Invitational stuff, which is the one I was on. When things go down, when people use ultimates, especially all at the same time, it gets pretty messy. And part of the thing that happens right now on the pro level is it's not uncommon. I'm not going to say it happens all the time, but it's certainly not uncommon that you have fights where nothing really happens.
Yeah.
The neutral doesn't really exist outside of poking. This is not every single fight. This is just every so often now, then you will definitely see this.
Yep.
The neutral doesn't happen. There's a lot of poking, and then all of a sudden somebody gets an ult. They use the ult, and the next guy uses the ult.
Yep.
And then within the span of
it's just chain ults. The neutral game in Rivals is absolute ass. There basically is no neutral game from what I see.
10 seconds, all 12 ultimates go off.
I mean, the neutral game is maybe a Wolverine will kidnap somebody.
And I'm not joking. I can show you the VOD. I was casting it. That's how I know. And this happened twice in a row. 2 fights in a row. First fight, poking. I think one guy did die to their credit in the neutrals or whatever. But beyond that, the actual fight starts. 12 ults get used. Then a team wins. We reset, do the same thing again. We poke. 12 ults go off again. And then the game, then somebody actually dies, and then that's the fight. So if that's the game, that can't be the whole game. Like
good stuff, Avril. Actually, very good stuff. Wow, actually really good. That's impressive from Avril. Yeah, good.
The game needs to do more than that. Go on. What's the word?
Is it goats-ish? Because I know like coaching goats.
It is
a lot of.
So
do you feel like there's neutral advantages? Because one of the nice things about goats that was at least somewhat useful is like looking at Shock and how they positioned their Zaryas and Divas like create neutral pressure was still pretty fun to watch. It was boring compared to anything else. But
yeah, 100. Goats had like the Spider's exactly right. There is no neutral advantage in Rivals for the most part because the neutral is completely invalidated by support ults. Like support ults actually just completely invalidate the neutral in every single way. You basically don't have any neutral whatsoever. There's no positioning. Positioning doesn't matter. You may as well run down main and see if you can use ults better than the other team by the looks of it. It's real fucking bad. Like at least Goats had the flow of Reinhardt taking all the resources, Zarya and Diva giving them, and the bubble flow where you could be advantage or disadvantage on bubble. In Rivals, there's basically nothing, man.
Still like neutral value. Do you think there's any sort of like dynamics that you can see through that? Like there's something that you can pull out of the neutral, that's some advantage.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of things here. One is that yes, if you're playing like a Wolverine or a Bucky, I think you can definitely affect the neutral a lot more.
There you go. Wolverine and Bucky, the only people that affects neutral. Oh god, it's problematic.
With kidnap/hook abilities, that like really changes the neutral game up. But it's very hard to off-angle. This is from my experience talking to a couple of different pros, and maybe different pros have different opinions. I didn't talk to just one pro here. I got a few different opinions. And one of the pros I talked to was like, yeah, it's like super hard to really play off angles here.
Yep. Of course, it's super hard to play off angles. This is what I was saying from the start. the off angles are so deep into the off angle, and the supports are so incentivized to stand on main because most of their value comes from ult charge. They can't go off on a +1 ever and actually do something interesting. Basically what they do is they stand on main and all off angles are unsupported. And poke type characters do not like unsupported off angles because they need like a constant drip feed of support in order to be able to exist. So yeah, like that makes sense to me.
You're more inclined to just want to like stack with your team.
Yep.
Unless you're like on a super long map, like an escort, and you're like just dumping Loki clones on high ground, just spamming down from top, like that might be considered some form of off angling. But this gets especially bad on the domination or control maps. Not a fan of the alternate game mode names. What it's by the way, just like, bro, can we just do control hybrid escort? Like, I don't know why Nitty's had to try
What
to
do they call
unique
it?
there.
I don't even know.
It's like
They got to pretend they're not copying their homework, right?
convergence, domination. It tells you nothing about what the game mode is. And
Yeah, Ghost was interesting. It was just really boring to watch, and it continued for way too long. That's the only problem with Ghost. Ghost was fun. Ghost was fun to play. Ghost was fun to watch for a little bit. It just like took ages.
on that, domination
Like
already exists as a
strategist.
game mode from Call of Duty. It's like if you've played video games before, especially shooting
Yeah,
games,
that's true.
you already know what domination is.
Domination is
So they've
not
used domination
control
gamble for a
point.
completely different game.
He's
mode.
right.
Just- Anyway, that's a side tangent. But you asked about the neutral. I haven't seen. There typically isn't a lot happening in the neutral. Outside.
What happened there? It swapped my cam. I became large for a second.
It's not GOATs in the sense that it's 3-3 triple tank, triple support. Everyone thinks like, oh, GOATs, that means 3 tanks and 3 supports. Like, in some sense, yes. But when I'm talking about GOATs in this context, it's the GOATs play style. It's not, oh, they're literally running 3 tanks.
There's also no sound in that scene. You know, I'll just go back a second. Let's go to 9 minutes.
And beyond that, domination
Like
already exists as a
strategist.
game mode from Call of Duty. It's like if you've played video games before, especially shooting games, you already know what domination is. So they've used domination gambit for a completely different game mode. It's just, anyway, that's a side tangent. But you asked about the neutral. I haven't seen. There typically isn't a lot happening in the neutral outside of like Wolverine Bucky comps.
What comp are they playing mostly? Sorry to
So it
interrupt.
was a lot of 2-2-2. So here's the thing: it's as much as it's GOATs, it's not GOATs in the sense that it's 3-3 triple tank.
It's just sustain. It's just sustain and no neutral trading.
Support. Everyone thinks like, oh, GOATs, that means 3 tanks and 3 supports. Like, in some sense, yes. But when I'm talking about GOATs in this context, it's the GOATs play style. It's not, oh, they're literally running 3 tanks, 3 supports. It's the play style of, you know, very ult focus, very ult trading, ult efficiency focus. And it's like, typically not a lot happens until
It's just fucking boring, man. Like, it's so boring.
ults come through, then everyone just spams
The only
ults.
reason I said when Rivals was launched, the only reason why low level isn't working properly, is working properly, is that idiots are feeding like idiots. That's the only reason why it seems to be working,
Everyone's just
or seem to
dropping
be
ults in there.
working.
The support ults are the most egregious, obviously, because
And that just gets worse over time. Like, people stop feeding over time quite as much, and therefore low ranks are gonna have problems.
too
Like,
many transcendences in the game. And then the Loki also then copies a Luna or a Cloak and Dagger or whatever and drops another transcendence. Like, the 90% of the time, they're always copying support. But it's, yeah, you typically normally see strange. Sometimes you get double shield. We really are just speed.
fair fucking dues, Avril. Real good analysis, real good stuff. I'm not gonna say I told you so, because I obviously told you so, but you know.
Running every single Overwatch meta. You do get double shield sometimes within these types of comps as well. So it could be a Strange and a Magneto at the same time. You could get Groot in there. Groot is especially popular with like kidnap style comps with like Wolverine and the Bucky. There are some like more poke heavy type of comps with like
We kidnap you and we wall you off. Excellent.
a Luna and a Namor at the same time, kind of enabling the ice turret. I didn't see any in the games I casted, but I know in NA meta they're quite like Moon Knight for poke, but he's quite a greedy character that loses the dive. I am glad there's at least the dive option, but I think the more brawly
It'd be
option.
such a Fredo move to say I told you so. Glad Ralph was above that. Well, that I think that's the thing. Like, it's just interesting to me when I was right about something before anyone else even said anything. Like, Rivals launched and I immediately said all of these things basically. I said, like, from day one, I was concerned about sustain and concerned that neutral fights wouldn't work properly. And I said multiple times that neutral is just kind of like non-existent in the game. It's interesting to see that it's playing out in high rank at the very least.
With like the super sustain, the super tanky front line seems to be the more popular from what I've seen so far.
It seems to be like one of those things where, like, at the ranked level, and I think this is really what keeps Rivals relevant in a good way, is that you have Spider-Man's, Black Panthers, Psylocke, Star-Lords that can function and do quite well if your supports aren't on their A game. But the second that your supports are like fully keyed in, fully locked in, fully aware, you just don't kill anything. Like, it's really hard for you to do anything, and you kind of.
They have the tools, they just weren't using the tools. And as knowledge filters down, and Spilo is just quieter than Avril here, as knowledge filters down, what's going to happen is these players are going to start using the tools. Like, just like they're just gonna not press Lunar Ice Block when they don't have to. They're not gonna randomly throw Mantis Sleep, so you're not gonna get those opportunities because there's no aggressive use case for these abilities. Like 100%, that's exactly what's gonna happen. Like immediately. It's really interesting to see that my exact predictions are coming true.
Kind of have to
Right.
lean more into neutral trading. So it's a bad thing from like a spectating professional level. The good thing is though, it's probably not something that 90%
I guess I'm gonna be manually turning up Spylo every time he comes on.
of the player base has to worry about too much. Because you really can just take Iron Fist and kill people sometimes. You really kill people sometimes. I don't know if you know how much support you played or strategist.
But it's going to be less over time, right? As people learn, this isn't an execution problem, being able to peel people off. Like, obviously it is to a reasonable degree, but being able to hit someone with the Mantis Sleep is not an execution problem. It's a I fucking use my button for no reason whatsoever earlier problem.
But I felt like that may have been like the real big problem for me. Is just you basically can never spectate a support player and rivals and expect anything super interesting. Tanks, duelists especially, really fun.
Yep.
Not so much strategists.
Sports are just really
Yeah, I feel like
boring.
I'm probably the least experienced here in playing Marvel Rivals. I've got like probably 20-30 hours of playing it, and one of the big problems I kept
So funny that Mantis Sleep is an AoE. It just, yeah, like, sure, Lunar Orb, 100%. I think Lunar Orb is actually a bigger projectile than people make, like, put on. It's a lot hard to hit an Anna Sleep, for instance, and a Lunar Orb, despite them probably having about the same speed. I think people would give me that, because it's a bigger AoE. But Mantis Sleep, man, you can just press that button and it just shuts down anyone that ever jumps on you. If you get killed by a Spider-Man as Mantis, it's literally just because you are half health before the Spider-Man jumped on you, and therefore you must play more boring. That's basically it.
running into is that I feel like supportals just last way too long for no reason. Like, it just feels like
But it's funny, it's silly, it's goofy, it's wacky, it's interesting, surely, right?
Overwatch's Transcendent or something ×2. So just like 12 seconds or however long it is of just people staring at each other and clicking, and no chance of killing. You're just staring at each other. And then there might be another support ult that's popped right after that. And just like, it feels like, why are we doing this? Why is this happening? And yeah, that's been one of my main frustrations with the game. And as well as Avril said earlier about like off angling on tanks, I feel like it's definitely a lot less of that in this game. And it's more just like front.
DPS2.
And their linear fight, and these guys probably won't get there, but their linear fight, their one-dimensional fight is fucking boring in Rivals. It's really boring because there is no kills that come from poke, like for the most part. There isn't, because sustain's much better than the poke. It's so hard to actually get kills down main, and you're so disincentivized for going off on angles.
Hard to off angle.
Yeah.
At the high level anyway. Maybe at like a scrub, like I can jump on a DPS and off angle to my heart's content in a quick play or low level game, but like because I don't really play rank, but like at a super high level, like I talk to players and they're like, yeah.
It's funny, quick play or low level game. Yeah, sure, mixed rank SRs, you're more likely to find someone that has arbitrarily used their Mantis Sleep for no reason in particular. But if you're at your appropriate rank, I feel like it is more easy for a Mantis to sleep someone than it is for a melee character to get on that person at an even rank, right? And that's at all rank distributions, in my opinion.
You just get really punished for trying to off angle because you're far away from your own team. It's hard for you to get healed. It's not like you have global healing passive that you can rely back up or anything like that either. So it's like the game way more rewards you for hard stacking as a 6, like a death ball of 6, while the other team's hard stacking the same death ball of 6.
Yep.
It's more semantics. I think angles are still very useful and still very important.
No, piss off, Spylo. They are disincentivized compared to Overwatch, right? It's not semantics to say that off angles are disincentivized when they are disincentivized compared to other games in the same genre. Of course they're necessary. Like, they're always going to be necessary.
It's like the depth of the angle. Like, you're on like basically on a bungee cord. Like, you can only angle like 45 degrees.
Yeah, and quite a lot of the maps do not have angles 45 degree away from you, genuinely. Like, quite a lot of them don't.
If you go further than that, depending on the character, you really do have support situations. Like, I think playing a lot of Bucky, you shouldn't stack on top of your tank, but you're going to be within like 10 meters of your tank. Like, you're going to go just to the
He
side.
says 45 degree angle. I think it's like, I don't think it's a 45 degree angle. I think it's like a 30 degree angle that you're allowed away from main if you're on Bucky. I think any further than that is actually problematic. I think if you go to 45, I'm thinking like quite a lot of the domination points, 45 degree angle from main, is way too far, question mark? Like, you are on very slight off angles in this game.
Or just to the side there. So I think angling is still good. It's just like you're not going to see flanks like almost ever, and the type of characters that would be taking flanks aren't going to be very good. So I think that my biggest complaint with the support ults in terms of the length, and I don't think people talk about this enough, is that they don't counter DPS ultimates. They counter DPS ultimates and then give your team an extended advantage after the DPS ult has ended. That's the most.
which is absolutely crazy and probably not necessary in any way. But what I think people are failing to see is that there are, and I think I'm going to go for blue for this, there are 4 DPS ultimates and 2 support ultimates on most teams. And do you know what that means, guys? It means that if you have, like, if the game is entirely revolving around ultimates, do you know what happens? You have teams dying more than they survive, and therefore fights resolve real damn quick, like real quick. And that sucks. Basically, I'm concerned that if we nerf support ults, what's going to happen is fights are just going to resolve immediately through ultimates. There's going to still be no poke. There's like, it's still going to be like long ranges basically staring at each other, and then a DPS ult's gonna go off and it's gonna resolve immediately, or DPS ult's gonna go off, we just back away from the support ult, and then it resolves immediately. The only thing that's keeping the game in a neutral phase for long enough to be interesting right now is the support ults, in my opinion, which I think is really scary, like horribly scary. Is it weird to say that the power of ultimates is too strong in the video game? Is that the funny, goofy wackiness that probably should be kept in the game because that's so enjoyable? Well, what happens when the funny, goofy wackiness is toxic to the average gameplay experience, right? But what happens when the peak experiences are actually taking away from the average experience to a ridiculous degree? New coronavirus discovered in Chinese bats sparks alarm. Yeah, more quarantine. I love quarantine last time. I'd love a new quarantine.
Most important problem. They're not just equal to DPS ultimates. They're better than DPS ultimates because of that.
I keep seeing people say they shouldn't nerf ults because it's fun. So yes, that's the goofy fun people refer to. Is it?
So you don't just counter, you then go continue to have an advantage for 3, 4, 5, even 6 seconds. And I think that's something that they should be looking at.
I mean, ultimates aside, the base healing is also insane. Like, I saw a clip, I think yesterday now, where it's a clip of a Psylocke ulting into the 2 supports. I believe
yeah, they're just healing each other.
So Luna and Invisible Women, and neither of them ulted. Neither of the 2 supports ulted. They just raw dogged the entire Psylocke ultimate and healed each other just with their standard healing. And they just used their normal cooldowns and burst healed each other to live through the Psylocke ultimate. No ultimate required.
You know, I feel like I've seen 1,000 Twitter clips of that, of like a Genji in either end stage Overwatch 1 or Overwatch 2. And this, I want to kind of turn the conversation ever so slightly now, because Rivals is going on a new trajectory now with this new patch. Luckily, they are nerfing almost all those support ults.
I am concerned. Okay, this is a hot take, chat. Hot take, guys. Nerfing support ults is going to make triple support comps better. Okay? Because they have nerfed not the length of the support ults, but the charge rate. So what's going to happen if you have 3 rotating? Of course, you're not going to get the first one because it's being split out more. It's actually going to give you a disadvantage massively in neutral. But the moment these ults get revolving, what's going to happen is that at a lower rank, it's going to be easier to cycle the ults into the enemy team because they're coming up less often. And the enemy team's only going to have 1, and if you have 2 support ults, you always win an engagement. So what's going to happen is that you're essentially cycling into them and still having that advantage. It's just harder for the defensive team or the other team on 2-2-2 to be able to survive. I'm really concerned.
In terms of their generation, their value, as Philo said, is still going to maintain that.
I don't think the boringness comes until GM or Celestial. That's hardly average. Yeah, I think I agree. I agree entirely with you. My concern would be that as the player base develops its understanding of spacing and other things like that, as the average player starts to learn what the enemy team is capable of doing and the respect they need to give them, and they're not fucking walking off on their own and dying like idiots, which is gonna... Well, I think we all agree that's going to get better over time, right? As knowledge increases, regardless of your skill level, the amount that you feed does reduce to a degree. This is going to get a little bit worse in the lower or the mid ranks, and it's going to filter down slowly, right? I'm not saying that low ranks are going to be unplayable because it's going to be all sustained, because obviously people are still going to be feeding for the most part there, or quick play even. But I do think it's going to go slowly downwards. Has it been taking longer than you expected for meta comps to trickle down? No, I think we're entirely on track. Yeah, I said 3 months for people to 2 months or so what I say? What I say, guys? 1 month for high-level players to realize they're the problem. 2 months for high-level players to start fucking talking about the problems. 3 months for it to trickle down into the low rank for people to adopt the metas and start creating the problems for themselves, and for them to realize there's a problem, right? And we are this 2 month period, maybe a little bit after the 2 month period, but still, like, I think this is We're still more or less on track. Maybe we're a couple weeks behind.
That's the same power level. So we'll see how that goes over time. Does that mean if your offensive ults can out-tempo them, will then you be able to snowball a bit? And then, of course, I think it's nice to hear that the pros aren't running triple support. That's good to hear. But I think a lot of the average ranked players, and we saw this when the hot list, the hero hot list came out, like Rocket's got like a 55% win rate. And I don't think it's as a second support. I bet it's as the third support, the seagull effect. He said this in his meta breakdown, where if you just get your feed or DPS onto one of the easiest characters in the game who vaguely heals everybody and himself, then you are more likely to win. And I think
about 40% of Rocket's power is in BRB and the instant res, right?
So open queue issues with rivals off to the side, and as we watch the trajectory of both of these games grow and develop in their own way. I also add, I think, when we talk about the principle of off angling and if it's strong or not, Overwatch clearly wants to go down, and we can see this from the spotlight, the route of self-value as opposed to needing team value. So Marvel's has the team-up mechanic. Overwatch is getting perks and other ways to enhance yourself. So, and it's a first-person shooter as well. So to some degree,
I think the team-ups aren't actually team value in any way, shape, or form. I don't think you can call it team value. It's team meta comp builder value, maybe, Fredo. I don't think it's really team value for the most part. You don't have to do similar things or really synergize in any way with the teammates or do stuff together in order for the team ups to get value. It's literally just perks by another name for the most part. It's very rare that the team ups actually have any like need to do anything together. Like, I think Rivals are a lot more independent still. Overwatch, obviously, it's in 5v5, has also moved away from team synergy. I agree with that, but I don't think it's to do with the perks. I think it's just always been true since they removed the other tank.
Depending on which characters win in that big exchange, be it Pharah, Widowmaker, whoever, they want you to be able to get value on that off angle. Whereas in Marvel Rivals, if as soon as the sniper's too good, they're like, get him out of here. It's okay if Black Widow has a 40% win rate. Fun fact, I was watching like the streamer stack play against the devs. The devs are freaking insane in Marvel Rivals. I don't know if you guys know this, but like there's like a Black Widow dev like sniping the Human Torch out of this guy. It was crazy. Anyway, one of the worst heroes in the game, and the devs are like poning streamers, which interesting thought.
Some perks might make you more team focused, I'd argue. Yeah, some of them definitely. Yeah, I don't think that checks out.
We'll see how the whole support meta pans out. As you say, they're still learning that game and how to maximize it. So there's some cool elements in play to me with the CC and all of that, having played MOBA games. I want to turn the conversation a bit to Yeatle again, because with all this being said, you seem to be the most, of any of the creators I've watched to try to get a temperature of this, you seem the one that's like really ready to stick to Overwatch and see it grow and blossom. And my optimism was down here, but I will say the spotlight is sending a glimmer of a hope for me. So where are you sitting at with where we're at with the spotlight? You made your big video on how to save the game. I think they did a lot of what you said, actually. So where are you at?
Yeah, I think a part of it is I'm a bit easier to please than most people in terms of like, if I see things improving, I like that. I kind of like the game more or less as it is. Not to say I want to stay as it is. I definitely want to see these improvements and, all that. And Marvel Rivals just never hit that itch for me. So it's a bit easier for me to be on the optimistic side of Overwatch. I think with the spotlight, again, there's a lot of great news. Like, finally, I know that you love hero bans. I love hero bans. And I'm glad that they're on the route of making that happen. I think hero pools is...
Yeah, just Sombra Widow permanently locked out. Every other, if you balance the game properly, you do not need hero bans. I think that it is very rare for a developer to make something cool and crazy and stupid for hero. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't think Overwatch has any of the crazy designs that might need hero bans. The type of thing that might need a hero ban is something like old Torbjorn or old Bastion, in order to make sure they don't hate on people in the low rank, right? But Overwatch removed them because of the poor low rank experience. Sure, hero bans would have helped. It doesn't really help, in my opinion, high level play as much as people think. I think quite a lot of the problems can be solved. I mean, Widow's just getting permanent banned in high level play. That's pretty obvious, but I'm banning Bull so I don't have to play against him on Mercy, so I don't have her on my team. Yeah. Hero bans do allow you to increase the diversity of the hero cast, but the diversity has already been, for the most part, extracted from Overwatch, and Rivals doesn't really have as much diversity as people think. Quite a lot of the diversity that you can have is toxic regardless, and if you keep allowing characters into the game that are this toxic type of diversity, that kind of stuff keeps stacking up in your game until the point where you can't ban all of it, until the point where you're just choosing your poison. Like with Storm and the Human Torch, right? Storm and the Human Torch. Who's getting banned next season, right, guys? We're going to have to play against one of them. If they're both strong, then we got problems. If they're both problematic, then we got problems. Because there's not going to be enough bans, right? Iron Man, Torch, and Storm. Which one gets banned? Do you ban Hulk? Do you ban Storm? Do you ban Iron Man? What about Wolverine? Are we banning Wolverine? you see you're very quickly running out of hero bans because you haven't addressed the actual problems with the kits. What you've done is you just said screw it, ban it if it's problematic. So you can only increase the amount of problematic or diverse characters in your game by the amount of hero bans you have in that game until it becomes bad. It does allow you a bit of flexibility, but not nearly as much as people think, because it's a limited system that it's basically a rubber band to the middle instead of a thing that allows you unlimited creativity, in my opinion. At a certain point, you are just picking your poison in terms of shit experiences. I don't think that's a good direction to go, in my opinion. Obviously, hero bans, if you do actively balance, is good, but if not, yeah.
It's great too, and I think just features like this that make like the players have more control is great, and I think they should have done it way sooner. That's the main thing. But I'm excited because I feel like they're doing a lot more things that are kind of like listening to the player base's like complaints or things that they've been asking for. And again, a lot of people say like it's taken them forever to do it, and it has. But I'm happy it's happening. You know, better than it's not happening, and then we're all just sad about it or just angry or whatever is happening. So yeah, overall, I'm a bit happier with the direction that Overwatch is going, and I hope they continue to do more of this stuff, because when Marvel Rivals happened and it was popping off and Overwatch was down in the gutters, it was looking kind of bad. I think most of us were like, is it over for Overwatch? Is that it? Are they cooked? Are they going to clap back? Or are they just going to slowly
I didn't, because I knew Rivals was going to turn into a bad experience.
die out from here? But it's good to see the spotlight came through, because that shows that they got something in them. They're still fighting. So for how long that is, we don't know. But I mean, with what's coming, it looks like they're in it to fight it. So
hell yeah. And the devs are all so cool as well. Like, you know, I had my problems with the Team 4 devs in the past, but this new dev team, they're all hip and just like super nice and down to earth.
Hello, fellow kids.
So I want the best for them and the game that I love.
I'm a hip young dev.
So we're going to get into now more
when
specific.
You see my shirt? It's got a video game character on it. Oh, all right.
Through all the things with the spotlight. I think it's pretty clear that these are things that they've been thinking about for quite a long time. It's not even fair at all to say it's a direct response to Rivals, because I don't think anybody thought Rivals like has no right to be as good as it is. It's made by NetEase, okay? The Diablo Immortal devs. So it's...
You know how you can't eat a sleeping aid and drive? Add Human Torch to that, puts me straight to sleep. Are you okay? Do you want me to call someone?
It's not like we were going to think it was going to be the top hero shooter by any means, but when you start to see the complexity they're looking to add to the game, it's clear that they're trying to compete up against like this genre in general as it grows, because we didn't know Concord was going to fail on its face necessarily, or Deadlock, where that's going to go when that finally releases. So they've got to level up in general for the entire ecosystem of gaming to compete. And the first way that...
You just got to jingle the keys in front of people to get people back into your game and have a good core experience for people to onboard into your game and become seasoned players, right? Because, like, that's the thing. Like, big events and cool stuff brings people in. Consistent experience lets people and low onboarding lets people learn, and then a good experience in the long-term progression, prestige rewards, other things like that will keep people in for like we're basically targeting three different sides. There's an exponential decay. That's the worst exponential decay curve I've done in my life. There's an exponential decay of players, right? This is the new player peak, right? This one right here, right? This bit, that's new player peak. This bit right here is onboarding learning curve, and this bit right here is the long-term experience, right? You've got three different things. They are all a percentage of the player base. So like these aren't more important or less important than each other, right? This is probably, if this cuts the player base in half, so does this and so does this. They just have a lower player base in it, so it looks like it's different. It's all exponential decay kind of stuff. So you do these big things, right? You try not to have them impact the long-term experience, and you try and bring the onboarding learning curve down. My only concern with Perks is the onboarding learning curve is actually going up instead of down, but that can be fought against by loads of other things. And yes, the cool factor and the content production schedule does go into whether people are willing to push through the onboarding learning curve, which is this middle bit, instead of quitting the game early. I don't know whether that's true right now, but honestly, yeah. Got to give loot boxes on level up like they did in Overwatch 1? Yeah, and the amount of free stuff you're giving is 100% contributing to this. Like Rivals giving free SR to the people that buy loot or buy skins. Yeah. Okay, my conspiracy theory is that Rivals is 100% doing not only performance-based matchmaking, but skin purchasing-based matchmaking. The only reason why I think they wouldn't do it in terms of rivals is because they're too scared that they might get caught and kicked back. If there was no chance of kickback from the community, 100% they'd be giving players a 55% win rate if they had if they had bought a skin. Yeah, 100%. No chance not.
They're doing that immediately. It's already in the game now, and I did reinstall to test this so I could have a more advanced opinion about it, is the perk system. Each hero gets 2 perks that you level up through the game. Kind of a mixed bag in terms of whether it's more fun, more powerful, more competitive, less competitive. I've got a lot of opinions about it myself, but who wants to pick up talking about perks? I have really strong opinions about the perk system.
Yes, me.
Go, Yito. Go for it.
I'll say that I feel like how people view perks becomes a lot better when you think of perks kind of like ultimates, because ultimates obviously create an unbalanced version of the game where some ultimates are just way better than others, and sometimes they just completely dominate a fight. But I think perks are that on a smaller scale, to where it makes the game more fun. It could also make it more unbalanced, but overall, I think the fun outweighs the unbalance. They just gotta, fix some perks, because some perks are lame as hell, but there's some really good ones. So that's my take on perks.
Yeah, I kind of agree with him, but I'm not really concerned about the balance of perks. Like, I think perks are fine. There are some perks that are boring. I'm concerned about the fun level of perks. Ultimates are cool because ultimates give that peak experience and make that peak experience bigger. And as you say, like, what do we have? We have the curve of the new players in because of peak experiences, right? These people, this big dip, like the uptick from the perk system being introduced from this announcement, this is the people that really want these big like peak experience, right? They love cool stuff. But I don't think the perk system is really giving you that to the level that I think. I think perks should have been crazier, in my opinion. I think perks should have added significant value to characters in crazy, stupid ways, and then scale them back over time. Because these new players come in, they don't get a peak experience, they probably leave to go to a different game that has a new peak experience. It's kind of what we learned from Rivals. Like, the peak experience matters so much for new player onboarding, and then as you get into these parts, the average experience or the bad sides, or having those peak experiences done to you when you're dying to them with no counterplay, starts mattering. I think they should have gone a bit crazier to start with. Right now, I say they're kind of like cutting the line between, and this is my real concern with 66 had a higher peaks. Yeah, 100%. I'd argue that 5v5 failed with all 3 of these. My concern is that peaks are disruptful enough to the gameplay experience so that the long-term players won't be that happy once it stabilizes. They add learning curve to this part of the experience when people are trying to like learn everything in the game and not be killed by random crap, and they aren't interesting enough that these players are gonna like it because the peak experience isn't quite high enough. So realistically, I know you can always say this, by cutting between the types of things that you might want, they've kind of like not done the best thing for all 3 types of players, but it's going to take a little while to work that out. I definitely think if a player came back into this game, they would not be staying past a week for the perks, they would be staying past a week for the ultimates. And personally, with this system, I think they should have just ramped up ultimates by like 20% for every single character, made them crazy, made them goofy, put perks in at the same time, and then ramp those ultimates back down over time, so that like this is fully metagaming psychology, so that the peak experience is really good, and then the onboarding learning curve gets a little bit better as time goes on, and the average experience for the people that have already onboarded the players that have been in the game for years gets a little bit more reasonable as time goes on, as we learn.
I think you actually mentioned this a little earlier, Fredo, but the kind of parallel between perks and team ups is really interesting to me, because I kind of view perks as kind of somewhat synonymous to team ups in a way.
Yeah, they're both bad systems that are jingling keys in front of players' faces so that they play the game more.
But the big difference here is not only from what you mentioned, but you don't need teammates to enable you to have these abilities available. So you're not requiring anyone in your team to specifically choose any particular hero in your team to give you a team up. You just sort of, it's your own thing. You choose perks, you level up, you go through and choose whatever perks you feel like you need to in that particular game. And so it's a kind of...
Yeah, but regardless for the team ups, like the moment you pick the characters, there's no team up there, right? It's literally a MOBA team comp builder thing for your power level. It's literally fully Fredo authorized MOBA team comp buildering the team up stuff. At least Perks is like singular, and you don't have to rely on somebody else to pick.
A way to add variety to the game, and I think that's what was missing for a lot of people, because Overwatch is a pretty old game now. It's a very old game, actually. And for a lot of people that have played this game for many years, which I think is the majority of the Overwatch player base, I think anyone that's still playing Overwatch right now has to have...
And then the enemy swaps to counter you, and you now have to play against the counter or lose your perks. Yeah, maybe. We'll see how it plays out. I think the main counters in the game are tracer type counters, where you just shut down a tracer, in which case, like, or flanker type counters, and tank type counters, where realistically, if the meta becomes I just pick the kill tank perks, it might be that you cannot still play certain tanks through the perks. Or it might be that the tanks that do have perks that increase their survivability are choosing between that and a fun one which can be used aggressively. In which case you have a problem because you're still countering them because they don't get to pick the fun perk if you do counter them. And the worst part about countering is, of course, countering doesn't require any downside in other areas of your kit for the most part. Like picking Cassidy, if Cassidy is better at tank busting, which I don't think really checks out with his perks, is kind of a no-brainer. Picking Reaper, because Reaper's really good at tank busting with 25% like lifesteal added. Sorry, it's 40%, isn't it? 40% lifesteal added for 3 seconds after his Wraith, so you can just Wraith through the tank and kill the tank. Doesn't really deny you getting anything else. They're kind of fine, regardless. If the tank swaps to, say, Sigma, Reaper's still fine in that scenario. I think perks do work to disincentivize counters. Queen works so much better against Rhine, Orisa, Ram with well-built perks despite their perks. I agree. I think perks do disincentivize counters, but I think that certain role counters like shooting tanks, for instance, might still exist even with perks active, and I'm scared that the meta is going to go down that route instead of going down the diversity route, which I think people think is going to happen.
Play the game for several years. I doubt very much that there's like a huge ton of like extremely new people. I would like to imagine the majority of people playing are still are like really veteran now, which means if you're a veteran of the game, you know the game quite well, which means the game is probably stale to some degree because you're just getting the same.
It also means that you like playing the game and you might not want the game to change in any meaningful way. One of the reasons why 5v5 was so bad is because these seasoned players or the veteran players got their playstyles removed by 5v5, right? Like they actually, like the off-tank players and the AFK support players actively got their playstyles removed, which is why the perk system might be significantly better because it is less disrupted to these seasoned veterans than the 5v5 swap was.
Experience over and over, especially if you're playing the same heroes a lot. And a lot of people only play a couple of different heroes. There's a lot of one tricks in this game, for better or worse. You only play a couple of heroes, and if you're only playing a small number of heroes, you're not getting that much variety because your hero just does the same thing over and over every single game. It's not like when you play League of Legends or Dota.
I don't think that's true, Avril. I think that so you know, like Dark Souls, how Dark Souls is a really shit simple combat system, which basically does nothing, but it adds on enemy diversity, right? And adds on bosses and adds on level design and all those extra things. I think that in this genre, what is the level design and the enemies and the diversity that exists there is your teammates and the enemies and the maps. Right? I don't think you necessarily need a really complex system or system that's constantly evolving for it to stay fresh. I could play a reskinned Dark Souls with that combat with like I could play it infinitely if I just had a new experience to go through, right? So it's not like, oh, well, you've just been left-clicking on Mercy for the past 5 years. You're bored with left-clicking on Mercy. It's not that necessarily. And adding more complexity to left-clicking on Mercy probably isn't necessary. And don't get me wrong, it's very good for jingling the keys at the children. Don't like it's going to get more players back into the game. It has very successfully got more players back into the game. But is it necessary to add that complexity because the game's stale? Probably not. Is it great marketing? Definitely.
You have different item builds. different random things and different matchups in the game can really change things up as well. And in the case of Dota, they also have perks. And so this is one of those things where, Team 4 Blizzard kind of borrows the concept from Dota. I think Apex Legends even has perks as well. And
it's interesting. I've quoted myself quite a few times because I'm really smart when I said that the complexity in hero-based shooters come from a team of 6 interacting with a team of 6 and the complexity you can get from there. And that vastly overwhelms all of the item shops and other things that you can get in MOBAs and kind of like honestly invalidates their complexity, right? I'd say this genre is infinitely more complicated without any extra BS added, and I'd say that is one of the main reasons why you probably shouldn't be adding extra BS like team-ups or perks or other stuff like that. I don't think it's a death knell. I don't think it's going to kill the game. I think it will, in a month's time, start affecting people's enjoyment and onboarding the game that have just tuned into the game because of the perks, though.
This is one way to just refresh the game a little bit. And the other thing that's really good about it is they've already said they're going to change the perks and update them, rebalance them, or just swap them in and out. I can't remember if it was every season or every couple of seasons, but they did say they want to change them over time, which means you're going to get a fresh experience every season or every other season where you're not just going to get used to your perks and be like, okay, this is my character now, and I'm bored again.
Spylo, perks, how you feel? The
micro in Overwatch is a lot more varied than the micro of MOBAs despite all the items. Yes, I think I agree with that in general. No, I'm not doing VOD reviews today. Must add bloat? Yeah, definitely. Everyone's expecting too much of Blizzard. They'll change like 2 a season. And it's a really, really conflicting thing for me because at a certain point, I do know that Blizzard has all this work pre-done from the PvE mode. So surely it's not that hard to implement into the characters. But also I know Blizzard content production schedule in the past, even when they've had things prepared like this, has been sluggish. So I'm like, I'll just let it play out. I'm not going to say it's going to be bad. I'm not going to say it's going to be good. I hope it's going to be better than before because they have no reason for it not to be. But I'm still a little bit hesitant, if you get what I mean.
I spent a lot of time the last few days. I mean, even going back to Spotlight, like thinking about how I felt because I think a lot of people expected me to be like the Overwatch purist and crap down on it. And I think this is where, for me, Rivals has pushed the development personally for me. Like I'm more open to seeing different ideas being tested because I can be like, actually, maybe it is nice to have something fresh and something new. And maybe there is competitive integrity that can be found in the perk system and depending, again, on the execution. And I think that's really kind of where I stand is like, it's really going to be on the execution.
I'm not really concerned about the competitive integrity. I'm concerned about whether it actually adds anything to the game, in my opinion. Like for sure, people are going to solve it and it's just going to be extra jank onto the, it's a table flip, right? It's just going whoop. And then people will solve it over time, and every time you table flip, what happens is some things get left behind, some things get broken, some things don't get updated, and therefore the game becomes hot garbage for a little while you fix it, because some of the things that are broken are boring broken, right? Just absolutely boring. You need a red outline, you feel left out here? Yeah, it is a bit red, isn't it? Maybe you need to tone it down by a little bit. It seems like fully saturated red color, doesn't it?
Not even right now, but the next like 4 or 5 months. Like which perks are going to get the axe? Like Keto said, they're just cheeks, or they're unbelievably overpowered, or there isn't really a lot of choice, or it's free value. It's like some of the worst.
Junkrat throwing his trap 50% further. Great.
And best aspects of team ups from Rivals, I feel the same way about perks. Like a lot of team ups just give you whatever healing or whatever this. It's just free value. It's dumb, and you always choose this. I don't like those perks. I don't like those team ups. And I think there's a lot of Overwatch perks. Like I was around there with my notebook, like the total cringe nerd, and like, well, I don't like this perk, and I don't like this, and I think they should do this. And I think there's a ton of potential. The system has a ton of potential. I already gave them the ramp.
I find it really interesting that the perk system has clearly gone through, I'd say, and probably everyone else says, probably about 9 months of development, right, guys, in constant churning and doing stuff kind of like mode. And they still have some weird ones in there. You would have thought they had like somebody just sense checking the perks as they were made, which is like, it's not horribly concerning, but it's just a bit weird that they can't get rid of a 50% further trap throw or something like that. It's just weird to me. I don't really
like
get
2
it.
hours of feedback they sat there with all my ideas and things I didn't like. I just want perks to be something that are situational, whether you choose this one over you choose that one, and it requires active participation to actually get value out of the perk. Not just from like a balance or competitive integrity standpoint. That's great and all, but just because it's more fun.
Yeah.
It's fun to throw your turn on a wall because you wanted to do it. It's fun to deliberately save my bubbles as Zarya to bubble a teammate so that they can move a little bit.
Yeah, the Life Weaver 20 health per second thingy is just so boring, man. Even if it's fun in the way that it's applied, it's still boring in the fact that it's just a boring perk.
It's fun to have Sombra hack a team teammate instead of hack an enemy because it changes exactly how you play around the game. It's like it just feels way more engaging and way more. There's a lot more variety of gameplay expression when you have perks like that. And I think they did a really good job with. I'll go as far to say up to 60-70% of them were decent. Maybe not perfectly balanced, but like were decent concepts. So it's those ugly third, you know. There's 168 of them. It's a lot, but if they develop those, if they replace those, not just for freshness of gameplay, but just to get rid of the crappy ones, then I'm happy. But in the meantime, I am having fun. I'm coaching people now, and I'm like, man, what perk would make the most sense right now? And I actually have to kind of think about the game. And another.
I heard they're currently Sombra players who don't pick a major perk. Yeah, I heard that as well. That Sombra players, because the allied hack causes problems with targeting the hack onto enemies, and the other perk. What was the other perk? I forgot. What was the other one? I think the other one basically did nothing. What was the other Sombra perk? Longer duration, shorter range. 30% range, but double length hack. Yeah, so that's a trade-off. So some people just aren't picking anything, which is a good counter to random saying that perks should always have a downside and not give value. If they don't give any value, you don't want them to be picking nothing. That sucks, man. Yeah, crazy.
The level, and that's kind of a new experience for me.
I agree that the variety is like super important, because if it's just like I gotta pick this one perk every time.
They should all be trade-offs though. Yeah, trade-offs, but have, I'd say, a net 5% value or something like
best
that.
perk, it's
The
late.
brig perk.
They should all be good to take.
The burst armor pack. It's like there's no situation where you're gonna choose the wall damage. Like almost no situation.
Yeah.
And it's just like.
There you go.
I think those are the kind. That's where perks are at their worst. But the Sigma perks, for example, the float one versus you float the tank. It's like that's really.
No, the float one versus the floating tank is as bad as a brig one Spylo. How can Spylo not get this? Like, surely he realizes this, that a 90 damage melee that floats the enemy tank away is ridiculously good. Like, come on, man.
You gotta really think about which one.
It's not situational in any way. You'll pick that against Die, you'll pick that against Brawl. Maybe you won't pick it against Poke, but realistically, the ability to levitate someone else against Poke isn't actually that good.
And that's where perks are at their best.
To be fair, I think you're completely wrong about the Torb Turret perk. Yeah, I know you do. And you will be proved wrong shortly.
I wish there was more about fun factor.
Floating one is more useful than you think. Give me a situation where it's actually useful. The enemy float is much better. Pros are using floating more often. Okay, we'll see how it goes over the next week. You can get to a 3-meter high ground after an hour of holding space. Yes. What's the tall perk where you can throw packs? Oh, where's the tall perk when you throw packs? Yeah, I really wish that quite a lot of the perks were gameplay changing instead of just like these flat power increases. Like the Brig pack perk, I think is the most boring thing I've ever seen in a video game. It is actively bad for the game.
Step 1, and then maybe reducing pain, step 2, and almost never.
Blizzard World's second point, you need to hold cart and hold high. No, you don't. You need to hold high and use the melee so people can't take high off you. No way. No way. Your Genji holds cart. Maybe there's situations of ranked where you'll pick it for it, but realistically, once you get onto third, the melee's still infinitely better. So it's like, meh.
More stats. So the problem I have with the perk system is far too many of them feel to me as just a deliberate power creep buff to the game. Remember the definition of what power creep is, okay? It's when they add new elements to the game, be it new heroes, new whatever. In order to make those elements interesting, they have to make it more competitive or compelling in some way, therefore raising gradually over time the strength of everything.
I always find it weird with power creep, right? Because there's this weird thing that happens, and like you can use like games like Hearthstone, for example, where power creeps happen massively over time. And one of the problems with power creep in Hearthstone isn't that the power is increasing over time, it's that things get left behind on the power creep, so things are completely useless, and also the peak cutoff is never raised because your health is still 30. In Overwatch, it's kind of the same, where if there's power creep, but the health pools go up, there's no necessary power creep. It's time to kill that you're really balancing by. And there's loads of things that are power creeping, stopping time to kill, and loads of things that are power creeping, time to kill. So you could say sometimes the game's becoming more sharp, but then some things are there that are stopping the game becoming more sharp. So realistically, it's kind of like a more case-by-case basis than anything else. So float perk, pretty good play on the Barney-able maps. You can do decent damage, decent amount of repositioning with the fly perk, and if you do a bit of parkour, you can get up to high grounds quicker. I agree with that. Yeah, you're right. The self-float on Sigma's good on Numbani. I think that's a rare situation where it matches up more or less equally to the melee perk, though, instead of a situation where it's a cool choice, right? If it's equal and one of them's like, If one's shit and the other's really good, and then occasionally this shit one becomes good, you don't really have a choice on the majority of maps, right? Or if like it's slightly worse and it becomes infinitely better on some maps, you still don't really have a choice. They have to be two relatively flat choices that are equal power level on all situations in order to have a realistic choice. And maybe that's too much of a demand for me. Maybe it's unreasonable to say there should be a choice between the perks at all times. Or I guess what I want is a two situational perks chose against each other that are flavorful, or a power perk versus a power perk, not situational. I feel like when there's power versus situational power, it becomes really problematic. Arissa's perks are really good. I'm going to enjoy 6v6 with double shield. It's going to be fun.
And especially as I took a vacation from Overwatch, I said I won't play ranked until they add hero bans, and well, then the next day they announced that they're adding them. Great, I guess I'll play competitive when that happens. But playing Marvel Rivals, to me, the balancing is an issue on the whole game. The whole game philosophy I take issue with, because a thing that I like about Rivals is that there's a lot of supporting cast going on. Not every single individual is always a playmaker or always maximally effective with maximum uptime, maximum counter pick potential.
Yeah, like in 6v6 before it went to 5v5 Fredo, per chance.
Whereas when I come back to Overwatch, I start to realize things that I hate. That, like, not many people complain about the next heroes I'm going to say, because top players, they're like, I want to ban Widowmaker, or Tracer's oppressive, or whatever. But to me, what I don't like personally is if I like play tank, for example, how good do I really want Symmetra or Mei or Junkrat or these characters to be that I have to respect their kit perfectly, or I instantly am throwing just by being out of position a little bit, whatever. I don't get that sense in Marvel Rivals, except up against Wolverine and Bucky, and to me, those feel easier to outplay despite how devastating they are, whereas in Overwatch...
You think Wolverine's easier to outplay than Symmetra? Yeah, I agree with Mei, kind of. Yeah, I kind of agree with Mei. Mei's annoying to the similar degree than Bucky. But Bucky can kidnap you, then melee you backwards, which is kind of complete ass bullshit. It's a specific tank hate character, man. Like, it's pretty bad though, right?
Overwatch.
And it's so weird that I feel like we did a Fredo mind skip there again, because we went from talking about diversity to, yeah,
like Sims got to have if I cook you for a second, before you know it, I'm gonna be doing 1,000 damage.
May 30% slow, enjoy your 6v6 tank queues.
Second, you're throwing hard, you better run. It's like, I hate that dynamic. And I think a lot of players, I've noticed this, really trying to be carefully understand why people were so for 6v6. They think that would end if they just went to 6v6.
Oh, he's addressing it, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, it would end because you have another person with you to potentially help you out in certain situations. Or if you don't have that person helping you out, they are at the very least doing other things. The problem with the tank experience is that shutting you down by doing these things to you is a ridiculously disproportionate amount of the value. Not that it can be done easier in 5v5 necessarily, but that it's better to do in 5v5.
But I think the reality was they were doing that in Overwatch 1, where everything has to be kitted up. So, like, an example for me is Torbjorn gets 6 ammo back on Overload, which already to me could have been a perk, but now he gets an extra perk on top of that where he gets a full reload. And I got the same problem with, like, Queen does the same thing, and the uptime of some of this is so, like, how much dopamine can I get at one time? Okay, like, shoot, pull the guy. You already got like 6 buttons on some of these Overwatch 2 characters. So where I felt it was best is on characters that I like, that have complicated kits, and now there's extra layers of complexity, but I still think it's too much. Like, to me, maybe it's an old man brain or whatever. I think it's over the top. And then I will whine about balance to this degree because I don't like making simple decisions. I think there's almost 0 times that it's objectively ever better to have a flanking turret versus a level 3 turret, because the new
Random, do you agree with Fredo or me?
angle of where you put it.
Disagree with both of us.
To me, that doesn't matter. Having more stats is almost always better. That example maybe is a little weaker than the Brig example, where Brig, you give her something cool, where a skill shot now does more damage when it hits a wall. So it's conditional versus more.
Isn't sure if he likes complex characters or the complexity of multiple characters with simple kits. Yeah, I think that's probably it, right?
Stats. Like, I hate the more stats.
Yeah.
There's so much more of this that's more stats. The more I played it over the last couple days, I realized some of them I like better than I thought I would. So one example is Pharah has an option between shield health or moving with barrage. And the reason why I like this as an example is because what I like is certain ones that matter to playing with randoms, okay? Almost always moving with barrage is the stronger option. However, if I play quick play which players do. We have to remember. Okay, there's a whole player base that plays all these different modes. And
Yeah, I don't think shield health is what that much worse in competitive play either. I think shield health is actually pretty good. I would say shield health takes a little bit too long to regen to be reasonable, but you know.
the perk system's going in everything. It's not just the competitive system. And I had Mercy Lucio as my supports, right? So I decided, well, maybe I'll try the shields one this time. And I was a little surprised that, okay, it's basically just your self regen is a little faster now. Not that exciting, but the
Shield regen is great for independence and rocket jumping. Yeah, it is 100% independence and rocket jumping. And maybe it goes a little bit too far to the point where high level play doesn't have a choice. But I don't personally, I don't give a shit about high level play. If high level play has to pick a certain perk because it's better, I just don't care, like 100%. But if on average play, picking a certain perk is significantly better, that's when I start to care. So high level play, rocket like barrage is infinitely better. Who the hell cares, right? If in diamond you have a reasonable choice, then it's a good choice.
playability, like the pain.
With high level, you mean pro level? Yeah, with high level, I mean like masters or above for the most part. Yeah, I say masters or above at the current ranking.
Points of me playing one of my favorite characters went down. On the other end of the spectrum,
I'd say in masters or above, you always choose barrage. That's my opinion. Anyone else disagree with that? Or at least for the majority of the time, you're going to use barrage. Like I say 80-20. Shield health does take a bit too long to regen, but having shield gem when you have an inferior backline without Mercy Pocket, and even Mercy Pocket, the shield boosts that far as survivability. Majority, sure, I see that, agree. Yeah, and I don't have a problem with that, with it diverging at the high ranks, but it's when there's no choice at the low ranks or the mid ranks, there's real problems for me.
It's also good on flanks too. Like even if you have good healers, but if you're like very flank map heavy, it's a pretty good choice. But yeah.
Yes, it will put your uptime pressure higher, then maybe you're even gaining ult higher. So the stats of it I understand, but the flavor of it is still kind of meh to me. And where I don't like it most is where I feel like they're just using the hotfix system that they invented to update the game, and they're using the hotfix system as content like they have for the last several years, which I haven't liked. I don't want them to increase soldiers' range by 5 meters, then bring it back 5 meters, and then Widowmaker's health is 225, and then it's 175.
Fredo hates constant patching, and I think he's kind of right on that, but I think he's massively over-egging it. Like, he's really upset about, like, for instance, the tracer range changes, which, in my opinion, doesn't change Tracer at all, or the Cassidy range change. Like, that doesn't really change anything about the way that the character plays, and lower mid ranks don't even know about it. It's literally only a change for high rank, and kind of like a change that low ranks or mid ranks don't even realize, so it's a weird one. Anyone else going to get to speak? I think Fredo's got good points. I'm interested in listening to him. That's why I said, like, I don't mind if Fredo takes over his own podcast a little bit in order to speak, because I think he's actually got some interesting opinions, and I don't think he's entirely wrong with some of them. But I do think it's going to be a little bit hard for anyone to respond to him, given the length of his chatties. Whenever I play Life Weaver, I love shield health healing independent of health, like getting double passive healing. I think shield health can be good if you're taking lots of small poke damage. Yes, if you're playing pokey and you want to be a little bit more independent, shield health matters loads.
It's like they're just playing all the breakpoints back, forth, dog chasing.
No, Fredo has not contacted me random. Stop asking. You asked earlier.
Tail chasing car. It's like now I feel at least that's on a perk system, so they can change it and you're at least making choices. I think it might actually be improved the more they take some of the kit power out of the inherent kit and put it into perks, or vice versa, kind of. Like I want them to play with that a little bit, because some of them are out of whack right now. Like Junkrat's perks are some of the worst in the entire game, in my opinion. They're actually useless in comparison to like how useful.
I told you, he's right on the majority of things. It's just very weird that he does this like mind warp where he's like, so some of the things that apply to 6v6 versus 5v5 comparison applies exactly to the Overwatch versus Rivals comparison. He just doesn't, he doesn't like, neither the two shall twine.
Some of the other perks, but we can't, unfortunately, to some degree, I have to remember that we always have to grade this game on a curve. I wish we didn't have to. And in reality, the general player base of all these games isn't going to do that. But we do have a smaller dev team with limited time, and so all those realities come crushing down, where, I mean, they're on a new philosophy where they're not going to release things when they're perfect, and we told them we want them to do that. So to some degree, I can't be like, well, a bunch of these aren't as competitive as the others, because
when Spilo smiles, look at this. He's definitely reading his chat.
We told them we want them to do that. So to some degree, I can't be like, well, a bunch of these aren't as competitive as the others, because they're gonna have to work that out over time. Go ahead,
That's kind of my expectation. Is just like, as long as they make the adjustments to some of the things that you're bringing up, like as long as there aren't
it's not 1.25 times. It's not 1.5.
Free value perks are adjusted, and I think there's a lot of things that they could do with it. But like I said, just active participation. Like as long as there's active participation in what you're doing, especially with the major perks, then I'm good.
I think that's a low bar, honestly. I don't think it's just active participation. Active participation, reasonable choices to be made, or if there's not a reasonable choice to be made and it's contextual as to which one you want to pick, I want there to be a big disparity in the context so that you can kind of adapt if there is a problem in the kit. For instance, let's say you have Ram, where Ram's dying too much, right? Let's give him 2 types of things that prevent him dying, but in different interesting ways. If you think there should be more power in the kit in terms of the amount of the times he can't die, don't give him 20% damage versus I don't fucking die immediately, because that's really boring to me. Cheers.
You know anything else on perks?
I was just thinking about the torp turret one, where I feel like choosing between the flanking turret and the buffed up turret, I feel like that's something that the choice can be closer if they just lower the stats on the buff turret.
Yeah,
like
agreed.
where it'll be more situational where we want to pick the flank turret if it wasn't so good, the tank turret.
Yeah, their head's kind of in the right place where they're like something fun. I did think, because of my very dumb theory crafting mind,
Agreed entirely with that.
like if you're up against Sombra Tracer, the flank turret, maybe you put it in the sky, right? Because I've seen people try to put it in the sky, basically.
It's really annoying. I played a game
Yeah, it's annoying in a boring way and not a fun way.
actually recently in Blizzard World, and they put the flank turret up on the wall in second point, and it was like just outside of fall off range.
Just because the long range turret is used doesn't, like, just because it's okay to pick doesn't mean it's a good perk. Like it still can be bad.
And you had to put yourself in a really awkward position to go for it. It's really clever. It's really irritating.
Or even
It's
like,
not clever, it's boring. It's very fucking boring, right? They need to lower that range, otherwise it's going to be horribly oppressive, specifically to Tracer players. It feels annoying to play against, but funny playing. Of course it feels funny to play. I mean, playing Wolverine and kidnapping a tank and insta-killing them feels funny to play. It doesn't mean it's good for the video game. Like, there's some things like that shouldn't be in the game because they disproportionately hate on certain characters. Like, I think we agree with that. Like, Namor's turrets are oppressive to Spider-Man in a way that is ridiculous, right? Trace has 6 blinks. A ceiling turret is necessary. Yeah, it doesn't matter if you have 6 blinks if you're on 150 health, though, when you engage.
Yes.
most tanks, like you just don't have the range damage to actually shoot it if
Yeah.
it's high up.
Yep,
Yeah.
tanks don't interact with it, Tracer and Sombra don't interact with it. It's actually really boring and really toxic. The choice isn't good because not only is it worse in the majority of situations, but in the situations where it is good, it's oppressive to certain heroes on the enemy team in an awful way.
Yeah. But should they just have a character that can shoot it though? That would be my like meta nerd argument. Like, well, have any character that could shoot it, and now it's worse. So, but all right, Avril,
Wait,
perks.
one more. Can I hop
Go
on
ahead.
one more for a perk? The Winston Tesla cannon on what is it? On deployables is so bad. I hope they change that one day.
Ooh, fun fact.
There's some crazy stuff in the perk system that is just god-awful garbage. Like, absolute garbage.
That's another one that surprised me. So, the enemy Winston's bubble counts as a deployable.
All
So
shields. All
Wait,
shields,
does
I think.
it?
I think all shields count.
Do they?
Oh, I didn't know
That would make sense. So you have a bit of a bubble advantage rolling out the now. And
It's absolute garbage. sorry. Like, it's garbage.
I don't know how I feel about this though, because that just means when you face trade, you win more space. This is kind of it's kind of interesting, but also kind of I don't know what to do with it. You know, I'm not sure what I think.
Yeah. I mean, I still think it's a little weak, the damage boost, but yeah, you do more damage to all deployables. I'm pretty sure that includes Ryan Shield, Orisa Shield, Mines, everything. Sigma Shield. I'm pretty
I
sure.
didn't know that.
We might have to fact check me, but that's what I believe.
General thoughts about perks, Avril? And I just thought of a question that maybe can help this conversation as well.
I mean, general.
I feel like
thoughts-
what's happened in this, and this is Fredo not moderating properly, is that Fredo said all the things that people want to say already in his 5-minute rant, and now everyone's a bit like struggling for conversation.
I'm glad they went in this direction. They're taking risks. It's what the game needs. Yeah, there's a lot of
We'll
perks.
see how
that
it
definitely memes.
progresses.
I mean, one of the meme perks that never even got brought up is Sojin plus 15 ammo. I'm like, yeah, great. No one's taking that. And I say that as a Sojin player, like my favorite.
No, I feel like people would agree with it. It's a flat power increase.
in the game. It's like, why is that there? Why is that one of the perks? But you know what? I trust them to tweak it. I trust them to change things up to make it more competitive, so that the choices between the perks are more difficult. Like you have to make more of an informed choice rather than.
No, I'm interrupting. Continue.
That's yeah. I would like to. I'm echoing the sentiment that it would be nice if all the perks were like changing the playstyle. I think one of the best perks is the Sigma Levitation perk because it significantly changes his playstyle, removes one of his biggest weaknesses, which is that he can't take high ground. Now he can. Very, very insane perk. Something like that really significantly changes the playstyle is like great. But just adding 15 ammo, it's like, wow. not
Yeah.
very. I mean, that's literally just adding stats, so that's not what we want.
And my Twitch chat is like, I mean, with all due respect, this is why.
Scared that they'll buff the bad perks to make them all super broken and boring? Well, they're flipping the table anyway, honestly, Skelly Man. It doesn't really matter. It's going to take months to balance anyway. The moment they introduced it, I was like, well, screw it. It doesn't matter. Flip the table. Even the Tracer perks, I struggle to get upset at them because whatever, like they're just throwing all their Lego on the floor and starting again for the most part with random changes to every single hero. It's why once they did this system, I think honestly they should have just buffed all the ults by like 20% as well, because fuck it, we're changing stuff, may as well make the new player onboarding experience a little bit more fun over the first couple of weeks. Why not?
Why people need to hear like
and at the same time go to 6v6 as an extra player on the enemy team to kill with your ults or something like that. I don't know, maybe.
Play what people's problem are with perks. Avril, Edel, myself anyway, and you too as well for you. It's not that the perk is not useful. Of course, having 15 ammo is very useful, but it doesn't change how you. It doesn't make you think. It's just stats. It's more value, more damage, more healing. Not that every minor perk has to have a revolutionary way in how you change the game, but if you look at like the Tracer's minor perk, right, where you get a blink when you grab a health pack.
I don't think boring value is problematic in practice, but it's definitely problematic in terms of your philosophy on how to make a video game, right? Like in boring value, if the other one's or interesting value is your other choice, it's fine, right? The boring value versus interesting value, maybe you'll pick the boring value some other time when it's slightly better in that situation. Sure, like it's no problem to me, but like, ideally, all of them should be interesting value, right? I actually think the Sojourn Ammo perk is one of the least offensive ones in the cast, just because it's well paired with another perk that does about the same amount of value with the ultimate, like, insta-kills, right? I don't think it's that problematic.
Makes you think a little bit, right? Just a little bit, not a major playstyle adjustment, but it might make some of those micro
It's just
decisions
boring.
in the middle of a fight. Same thing with the Forest Barrage, right? Freedo the shields, right? It's some small adjustments. That's what minor perk has. Just slapping on ammo is bad. Now, to play cope section here, I actually did talk with Alec about this, and they said that they really don't like the perks that do that, and I think that there's a plan to adjust any perks that just give stats. You have 168 perks, first iteration. They're definitely on a timer to get these out. There may only be so much creativity that you can have. They definitely said they don't want just stats. They said that specifically. Now, will they walk the talk and continue all the way
I'm
through?
always confused by Blizzard's production schedule of content, because I'm like 168 perks, okay, but you've got like some of the coding done already, right? Like some of the coding, they said that they don't like the stat perks, like the trap range and stuff like that, and the extra ammo for Sojourn, which I think is fairly reasonable, right? Literally 100% of the games and rivals are being horrific. Yeah, just don't play the game as bad. Oh god, if I put this on YouTube, people are gonna hate me. Yeah, rivals are boring long range poke fest where every single fight is decided by ultimates, and if they aren't decided by ultimates, they're decided by complete asinine bullshit. I read somewhere that they didn't just pull perks from PvE, they designed them specifically for PvP. They were cool while I read it. Yeah, that seems very hard to believe, doesn't it, Random? I mean, if you got some of the work done for you, you aren't going to just discard it and start working again, right? They at least would have took the concepts and it would have speeded up their production regardless if they've already done quite a lot.
Through the second and third iterations, we'll wait and see. Same thing goes with any of the other free value or crappy ones. We'll wait and see. But I with talking with them, they are definitely, I think, on the same page as us. The question is, how is the implementation moving forward? Because I will be like, hey guys, good news. They said this. Let's see what happens.
Can I tell you the hero I think?
I think that they've really screwed it a little bit by putting so many flat bad ones or flat power increase ones into it, because I feel like there'd be much better reception of this system and no way to criticize it for the most part if they didn't do that, right?
As in terms of design and the choice you have to make between both the minor and the major perks, I think the hero that had like the biggest win in terms of, wow, these perks are so...
I know who it's going to be. I know it's going to be.
It's Ana, because both the minors and both the majors are great. All the perks that she has, you have to make an informed choice.
I gave it to C- eventually. But yeah, like, enemies waking from sleep dart are slowed by 2 seconds. That's fucking awful, man. Like, real bad. Like, this is bad. C- was given under duress? Yeah, mostly at random's request. The bounce, still bad. Like, I don't like the bounce as a concept. I don't think it's even that interesting, honestly. And then, like, the strike versus headhunter, double nano boost is boring as hell. I want you to give her the D, but you went to C-. Yeah, they're really bad, right? What is this opinion?
All the options are great. You're losing something each time that you don't take it. You get something great when you take one option. You definitely lose out on the other option. It's like, crap, why am I forgetting the term? Opportunity cost. The opportunity cost is really real on Anna in terms of perks, and that I think is like perfect perk design.
They're awful, man. They're really bad. Like, Groggy's awful. Like, what are we talking about, Avril? These are bad. These are bad perks. They're not good. They provide way too much value. The value they provide is boring, and the value they provide hates disproportionately on certain characters on the enemy team, like the tanks, or like like the enemy flankers, because you can always just pick a perk that stops the enemy flankers. It's so interesting, because the self-nano isn't only a get-off-me ability, it's a power ability as well. I think headshots and self-nano are fun, maybe a bit too strong. I think self-nano's crazy good, like crazy good. I think headshots is interesting, but specific power that you're very much only more likely to pick when you're against an enemy flyer.
Design.
She's one of the most popular characters in the history of the game, so they if they want to, I think alternatively another one that's really popular. I saw Skiesti's video about this. She's not happy about the mercy perks, which are kind of antithetical to her playstyle or unnecessary. So I think one of them is Guardian Angel distance. It's like,
yep,
I already am controlling this perfectly anyway. You gave her the opportunity to super jump anyway, so it's like she's free flying always. So it's just more range on that's not helping, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like they fucked up Mercy's movement system, so you now can't power creep it at all for no reason whatsoever.
And then
like, because they just screwed it in Overwatch 2.
The degree 2 beams is even good. I don't know if
the anime subreddit is kind of worried Anna will be permabanned in season 16. It's gonna be so funny when people lose their absolute minds due to being permabanned. It's gonna be hilarious.
They want that in the game. So there's some cases where I'm like,
the thing with Rivals is it's kind of good that there were bans to begin with, because you couldn't generate the mains before you started banning the heroes. But even then, it's becoming quite annoying. Like, if I'm a guy that plays Storm and Iron Man and maybe the Flyers, I really am gonna get hated on real soon.
All right, when things make a big play, a big explosion. Okay, so Anna, I believe, has like a multi-name.
Anna, Widow, Sombra, right? Anna, Widow, Sombra.
Right? Am I right on that? Okay, because I didn't play Ana. I played Queen, and I had an Ana teammate. We were against the Kiri, so all of a sudden now we have like multi antis, you know? And the enemy team was kind of exploding. That was great to me. That to me, all of a sudden now the game has impact again. That's what I care about most. I want to see things explode. I executed a play, and the thing explodes.
I think Fredo's right about that, to be honest. If you're gonna jingle keys, make sure you jingle them loudly. Don't bother jingling them slightly. Don't get me wrong, I think this is fucking awful, right? What he just described is awful for the video game. Real bad. But if you're gonna jingle the keys, might as well go full hog and do it.
Rivals, for all its faults with like sustain and whatnot, the big plays are really big, and then there's like a lot of ways to sustain the fight. So it's in a odd balance in that regard. Whereas I think...
Can I go for an unhinged rant when you're done? I'm sorry, I just had a thought. I'm sorry, continue.
Yeah, Anna on tanks is purely a 5v5 issue. That's true. I feel like quite a lot of these are going to be solved in 6v6. I actually am quite optimistic towards 6v6 comp regardless. I'm concerned that it's going to be Mickey Mouse bullshit and not be balanced in any way, shape, or form, because they're flipping the table for no reason, throwing the Lego on the floor, so we're going to have to pick it up again. But then again, Orissa's shield, right, is going to be interesting at the very least. Maybe double shield is good, maybe it's bad, maybe it's going to be really oppressive, but they've added more diversity into the playstyles already by putting another poke tank. And remember what I was saying for 6v6 in our tests, right? Remember what I was saying about poke tanks? We have very little now, and they're all quite boring. So if they can add Orisa back into a poke tank variant, I actually think that's quite interesting. Now, don't get me wrong, Orisa with Spear and Sigma with Punch is going to be fucking boring. If they can stand in a place and stack other people with them, that's going to be awful. But still, I'm interested that they are putting it back into the game.
A problem that I have playing Overwatch, and
execution needs work. Yeah. I think Orisa Shield's going to be horribly oppressive to 6v6.
A lot of players have this, is it's so confrontational to like just little chip engagements. Like I get a pick that now they have to reset. So there's never really these big wipes. Whereas now we've got that power to do it. I feel like, okay, so this is, have you ever seen The Incredibles? It's a great movie.
But was he on about?
Chip engagements. Like, I want to see things explode. I executed a play, and the thing explodes. Rivals, for all its faults with like sustain and whatnot, the big plays are really big, and then there's like a lot of ways to sustain the fight. So it's in a odd balance in that regard. Whereas I think...
Can I go for an unhinged rant when you're done? I'm sorry, I just had a thought. I'm sorry, continue.
A problem that I have playing Overwatch, and I think a lot of players have this, is it's so confrontational to like just little chip engagements. Like I get a pick that now they have to reset.
Oh yeah, because 5v5 and it's 25%. Sorry, it's 20% of your characters instead of being less. Yeah. So yeah, literally a problem in 5v5. Actually, it's so crazy, isn't it? Right? If you just go back to 6v6, you amp up the AOE ults, you amp up people's need speed to group up and other things like that, you make it less 1v1ish, then you have to reset less, and you can use big ultimates in order to win the game a little bit more. Like,
so there's never really these big wipes, whereas now we've got that power to do it. I feel like, okay, so this is, have you ever seen The Incredibles? It's a great movie. There's this moment where like the little kid's running on the track, right? And then he starts like dominating everybody, and the dad's like, whoa, slow down, we can't let everyone know you're a hero. This is how I feel with the perks, okay? I'm like, all right, big plays, big play, whoa, not that much, chill. Let's not like overly dumb the game down and make it too silly. So I want to give useful feedback to this regard, but like some of it worries me, some of it, I don't know. Go ahead, Spilo.
It's so it comes back around random. It comes back around. Fredo gets caught by somebody on their phone as well. That's funny.
All right, so I'm gonna cook just a little bit off topic, but you reminded me. So here are my thoughts. So we've been beating Marvel Rivals over the head with its sustained design.
Avril was stalking Spilo chat. It's a real bad sign for your podcast when people are messaging each other behind the scenes.
And everything but actually I'm gonna advocate for a little bit. Here's a thought. Okay, so I used to be in the competitive, this is funny, Lord of the Rings online scene, the MMO, okay? Now, I don't know, I've not played other MMOs, Avril's laughing at me, but
It is funny, you're right, it is funny.
Shut up, okay? It was 6v6, coincidentally, all right? And I don't know about other MMOs, but Lord of the Rings Online, easy sustain was really strong. And so we do these 6v6s, and it was basically all like burst one-shots. But the strategy and the skill was different classes had different strengths. So I'm still the greatest warg player that has ever been in that game, okay? And that class was like really good sustain damage, but had a really strong couple of debuffs, which if you timed really well, you could basically just instantly one-shot with other things. And there's other classes that were really good at just burst damage, and the other classes that were really good at sustained pressure and crowd control timing. Basically, the way that these 66s kind of worked out is there's just infinite free sustain, impossible to punch through until it wasn't. Until you synchronize those burst windows, and the skill expression was hitting the burst window at the same time as your team, and playing.
Yeah, also known as very demanding on but that's kind of like the goats thing, right? Goats had this skill expression burst that you could hit at the same time to actually break through it, and good goats teams were very good at mitigating the other team's burst and very good at doing their burst into the enemy team. And like Rivals doesn't do that in any way, shape or form, because all the bursts are independently based on ultimates rather than anything else, right? There's no skill expression in using your ult for the most part in Rivals in order to kill the enemy team once you actually get into it.
Versus it was hitting the defensive cooldowns and or anticipating that burst window. So I look at Rivals and I'm like, oh, I get a lot of people in my chat like Rivals is such a low skill ceiling. Rivals is really brain dead. And I understand that like the neutral pressure can look really boring. But if you look, I think we talked about the cloak and dagger clip, right? Them countering that ultimate. Like that's not easy to do. Like you got to not only anticipate that, you got to also use the cooldowns in the right order and then coordinate that with your team. If obviously,
I just like to say with the cloak and dagger clip, you don't actually need to use cooldowns in the correct order. Just to be very clear, you just need to put the bubble on the floor and heal each other. Like it's not that complicated. It just requires a bit of coordination to stop a Psylocke ult killing you. So Psylocke ult isn't an AOE. It hits individual people alternately who are in the AOE. So essentially, all you have to do is stand next to each other and put a bubble on the floor, and you can heal for it really easy.
I'm not saying that we're gonna go like MMO level of one shots and or sustain or whatever, but there could be a spectrum where like Rivals has its identity of where like neutral sustain pressure isn't as much of a priority, so much as it is like synchronizing these.
Yeah, coordinate with the team gets a lot worse whenever the rank system has players pretty much of random skill in your games. Yeah, or something performance-based matchmaking, something engagement, something
burst windows, right? Like you hit the support ult at the right time, or you hit the bubble, you hit the matrix. And as somebody that's played that kind of style of 6v6 in a completely different game, to be fair, and definitely on the extreme side of things, that could be like a really interesting way of skill expression, where it's like less about like Overwatch. If you hit a fat anti-nade or you put a bunch of damage on the enemy tank, there's really no getting back from that without burning an ultimate. Like they kind of have to disengage. With Rivals, there's always ways of compensating for the damage, but what if they pop that one-shot ability? Or what if they synchronize the debuffs? They don't really have a lot of debuffs. I know Cloak and Dagger's like little frontline wave, which actually just got recently buffed, is a pretty big debuff. But I feel like there's like, maybe if they lean into some design like that with some characters, where like everything has...
Yeah, there's no bursty aggressive options in the game at all.
Infinite sustain, everything has ridiculously high damage, but some of our more utility-based characters, maybe our mobility-based characters, they have...
But the problem with that is if you can cut through it in neutral, the game will end real fucking fast because the numbers are just so high.
Ways that they can kind of synergize and synchronize pressure. It's not boring. It's really fun to do that. It's just different, you know? It's a different... It's kind of like when you compare like CSGO to Overwatch. I'm sure CSGO players are like, dude, nothing freaking dies in Overwatch. And now we're the CS players looking at Marvel Rivals and going, nothing freaking dies in Rivals, but it's just a different way of playing the game. The skill ceiling is still there. It's just the sustain.
No, because the skill ceiling in the one he was describing seems to be organizing a neutral kit or coordinating with other people in order to do stuff. The Rivals one is just heal the other person and you don't die. Like, that's pretty simple. So the reason why Spider-Man is so feast or famine isn't because, like, there's an interesting fight between people and Spider-Man. It's because there isn't.
Pressure
just
doesn't matter
boring.
quite as much.
I feel like we've been here in Overwatch, though. We've been in a position where you go back to Overwatch 1, there was a lot more healing. Zen used to do more healing. Mercy had more healing as well. There was no DPS passive. We've been in a phase, maybe not as extreme as Marvel Rivals, but it's been in a phase of sustain. No, I'm not just talking like GOAT's AoE. I'm even talking like single target sustain, where it felt like you needed burst to take anyone down. And so you have this opposite situation where it's like, okay, now there's this arms race, this evolutionary arms race. Like, well, there's
Yeah, I think it's just poor balancing of time to kill and sustain. But like, you can compare it to Rivals, but it's pretty clear from Overwatch's perspective that they fucked up in terms of sustain. Or they couldn't change it, or they didn't think they could change it without losing players or pissing off the support players. But in Rivals, it's pretty clear to me, and probably pretty clear to everyone else, that sustain is a quirk, not a bug, right? It's a feature. It's intended by the devs. Like, that's the problem. That's the scary part.
sustain. So now we need more burst. Or people don't like playing against burst, so now we need more healing. Oh shit, now you need more burst to take down the healing. It's just like, okay, where does this end? Like,
the
so
problem is
burst
burst
versus healing.
The problem is your burst is associated with two things. It's associated with one-shots and associated with Moon Knight's ultimate. It's associated with pressing Q or clicking people in the head. But in the MMO world, again, I know I'm talking way out of the box.
I think they'll eventually nerf supports. Do you think they'll nerf support sustained in terms of numbers? Or do you think they're just going to keep hitting the ultimates until they're no longer impactful, right? I think that's the question. And if they keep hitting the ultimates, they're going to need to hit the DPS ultimates as well, because they hit the support ultimates enough, things are going to start dying real fucking quick every time an ult goes off, because there's not enough sustain to be able to get through it, right? Supports have to override the game. If they override the game for less time, you just follow it up with another DPS ult, and then the enemy team dies immediately.
Here. It was coordination of debuffs. There's timing windows.
I think over the seasons they will, but it all gets very messy. I mean, I think you think that because they will have to do that. I think you think that because this is the way the game's going in general, and you think it's bad. I don't think you think that because the devs have ever signposted that they will be doing this in terms of the general sustain. Obviously, with the ults, it's clear they know about it. Good for them. That, like, I think it's probably going to make the triple support problem worse, but realistically, the fact that they know about it is good enough for me. I'm happy with it. Yeah, it's a question of whether the general sustain will ever come down. One of the things that I'm really concerned about is there's no aggressive burst options in the game. That's crazy bad, really bad, really, really, really bad. So basically, Spider-Man always goes up against sleep on Mantis, because Mantis Sleep is never used aggressively. That sucks ass. That should never be in the game. And yet it is the standard for all support design. That real sucks. Like, Cloak and Dagger's bubble. Cloak and Dagger's bubble is always used for peel onto a character or to sustain the tanks not aggressing while they stand still. If they aggress, they walk out of the bubble. So we have another situation where the bubble is, for the most part, always going to be on the character if a Spider-Man dives them. We don't have a textured interaction between the character based on whether they have certain abilities. We have a binary system where either they hit the ability or they don't hit the ability, and then the Spider-Man dies. There's loads of stuff like this in the game where it's all just like yes or no binary choices rather than interesting counterplay between the heroes.
You had to synchronize for it to work, and that I would feel like I don't know if that would even work in a game like this, but that
it requires too much in a hero shooter. It requires too much coordination, too much
right. But
too much expectation for solo queue people to like do that.
Yes,
you know?
but keep in mind that we're talking about the pro scene right now. We just described how in lower mid ranks, dive characters can still work because supports aren't that good. You know what I'm saying? So we're talking about the pro scene. You can't punch through the sustain with Black Panther. You can't take an angle and pressure people out anymore. Okay, so then those are the pros are gonna be the ones that
Spider actually got very close to making the point on burst, and I'm really happy with that.
Actually exploiting that stuff.
How'd the rank reset treat you? Haven't logged in.
All right, I want to do one more round on perks, and here I'm going to frame the question.
Sorry for this segue. I apologize.
Comparing to all these games, I think is highly relevant because to me, when people talk about Rivals compared to Overwatch, I usually try to say I actually think it takes some MMO influences more so sometimes than directly Overwatch. Like the bones are Overwatch.
What
yes,
the hero team comp builder does it take, Fredo?
But the way everything's interacting and how many buttons are in play and like the speed of it, it looks like an MMO to me. So
it doesn't, in my opinion, look like an MMO. I mean, people are just sustaining for longer, and that looks more like MMO.
I think it's a very apt comparison, and of course, much of what Blizzard does in general is inspired from their
flagship. You play 6v6 comp? Yeah, I'm gonna grind 6v6 comp. I'm concerned about the game mode. To be clear, the perk system takes a lot of the interest for me out of the game mode, but I'm still gonna play it. I'm still gonna grind it. I will be representing the tank queue, but yeah, it has took a lot of the excitement for me out.
Ship IP World of Warcraft. So One more round on perks now. What I want to go through, everybody, try to think of.
Don't like perks? No, I don't. I don't like perks. As like a completely aside, I don't like perks. I fully understand why they are in the game. I think they're good for the game. I don't like them. Like, it's just a personal to me. I don't think adding this adds anything meaningful to the game. I think this all could have been, all of these problems we're solving with perks, specifically with the counter-swapping stuff, is entirely stuff that's solved by the 6v6 format. And I think the perks added onto the 6v6 format are going to make some of the problems there worse, because perks are causing issues at the same time as fixing them. They're fixing the counter-swapping, they're causing more deep counter-swapping if a team's coordinated. And I don't think that's necessary on the mode. I just don't think it's necessary. Is that averaging argument that I go down and nobody understands every single time, right? In a 6v6 format, the fringes are like bigger in terms of the impact the fringe is going to have, right? You can counter swap some with 6 people, but on average you're not going to be doing that in ranked. And if you add perks onto that, you can counter swap some with 6 people and counter swap the perks onto them. And that can really break the game in ridiculous ways that we don't want it to do. We need to have limits on the extremes, right? Because if in coordinated play, it could break it. And if that can filter down, it can break the low ranks. But at the same time, in 6v6, the average experience, right? This peak is higher because on average, if people are picking random crap, they're going to get a more generalized team comp. But yeah, I get pissed when people say perks fix counter swap. Perks do fix counter swap on a one-to-one person individual level. If one person counter swaps one other person, the perks fix it. If 6 people or 5 people counter swap one person, the perks don't necessarily fix it, or it's kind of like a side grade where you have to pick the perk that makes you sustain, or they don't really fix it at all because maybe the perks are good enough that it still allows you to tank hate. Ultimately, it's a situation where the tanks still need to be ridiculously big because the perks are making it so they need to be big in order to not be blown up instantly, and I just fundamentally hate that style of play. I don't like Giga Tank walking around dominating the entire lobby and having to kill everyone, otherwise they're doing nothing, and they may as well just like play a different role. I don't like the extra demand on tanks. I think it's boring. It's more of a band-aid fix saying you can't swap because you'll lose perks. Counter swap's still better because you gain perks faster. Yeah, and it's a psychological trick as well because people aren't going to want to change that.
Favorite perks that you think is like emblematic of what the system should be, and then maybe some bugbear ones that you really don't like either on the character or for the game, let's say in general. I can go first, but otherwise I'm going to shoot it over to Yeetle. Do you have ones that have not been, thoroughly mentioned so far?
My favorite perk, hands down, is the Bastion major ones, where you get to choose either his old cannon, where he basically 2-shots people, but in exchange you give up your turret mode, or the other option is the self heal, which I played a game the other day, and the self heal seems like it lasts way too long and it's annoying, but
it's infinite. It's infinite.
I like that you choose there because you're giving up your ability to like shred like a Winston or something, for example, right? But now you're playing more so to like engage with the enemy DPS or squishies more rather than Bastion.
I think the reason why the self-heal is so fun is because self-heal makes a lot of sense onto Bastion's kit on a character that really struggles to off-angle independently. I think that's really like the point of it, right? Bastion struggles to be independent, and giving the self-healer makes him more independent. It's why we put it into Pugs. That's why we did it, because it actually significantly improves Bastion's gameplay loop. Rocket Perks is kind of bare. What the hell is a bear? The problem with Bastion's self-heal is that I have to play half the game without it. Yeah, it does seem like something that should be in the kit that just isn't in the kit as a default. The self-heal doesn't really... And I guess that's the point. Like, you're choosing between counter-swapping dive that's going to, like, oppress you and allowing yourself to go on angles versus straight power if you don't get it. It's another one of those, like, am I being oppressed? Okay, I'm being oppressed. I'm going to take the boring thing that allows me to play the video game versus am I not being impressed? Okay, I get to play the fun perk this game, right? And you can imagine a situation. Obviously, I do think the self-heal is probably more interesting than the other ones because I think it should be in the kit by default. But there's a load of choices like that where I feel like some of the time you're just going to be picking the boring one because the boring one allows you to live. And I don't think that's an interesting choice personally. Hog Breather Speed and Sojourn Bear Overclock Rail. Yeah, no. Of course, some perks are clearly stronger than the others. Like, it is crazy how ridiculously unbalanced. I'd say a quarter of the perks are. And remember, if there's a quarter of the perks unbalanced, reasonably what that means is that 60, 70% of the choices on the characters have at least one choice that isn't a choice, which kind of just sucks ass. Like, it's really bad.
And just being an all-in, I'm gonna shoot the tank the whole time. And I like that it changes his playstyle so dramatically in that way. So I think that's really cool. And I just think a lot of the perks where it kind of is a throwback to the old kit is really cool too. And I think that's a great way to make old mains of some of these heroes kind of happy.
Okay, and then one that you don't like that you think they should maybe change or is bad for the game?
I don't like the Ana one. I know some of you guys did like the Ana one. I don't like the one where she nanos something.
Thank God someone's intelligent. Can you mention Groggy, please? That gives you 2-second slowdown after being slept. That pretty much is only going to affect the tanks and make the tank experience worse.
Buddy and nanos herself. I'm on the side of she should only be able to nano herself, because then it's a choice of like, okay, I'm gonna go for these.
Yeah, it's boring.
Aggressive, maybe flank self nano plays or something of that sort, versus what it is now where you just full on nano someone else. Oh, and I'm buffed up too. And just one more thing on Ana. I know, Avril, you loved Ana's perks, but I kind of know the headshots. I don't like that.
Why do you hate grannies? I'm just not into that.
Ana and Juno both have a perk that allow them to headshot instead of just being a body shot hero towards these heroes, because I like body shotting. I think that's cool. But I don't ever want to be in a world where it's like...
Yeah, fucking preach, Ito. Some of these characters are gravitated towards because you actually don't have to shoot the head. People actually play it because you don't have to. If there's a situation where shooting the head is better and it's not a choice in terms of power level and you have to pick that, you fundamentally change the type of person that will want to gravitate towards the character.
You can pick the other
perk, but that's where I'm getting with this.
You could choose incorrectly and pick the other.
That's where I'm getting with this. I don't
Fredo, damn right, Fredo. Avril's a little weasel.
I want it to be a world where it's more optimal to go for the headshot one. And it's like, well, I'm not really a headshot guy, so fuck. I guess I'm gonna pick the suboptimal perk here.
Yep.
I want to focus in on that a little bit. What do we think about power creep in the game specifically? Because what you're saying is now these characters have power to type. Like, they did the whole season 9 thing, okay? The game's gonna be more brawly. Okay? You'll die less fast. Well, now supports that never could headshot can headshot. So, which one is it, Blizzard? Like, I get confused being tugged around like this all the time, personally, and I think limits on power in general, and I'm sure if Sam was here to some degree, we would align on this, because we had ever since Overwatch 1 days. That's where I get kind of worried about it, because I'm not necessarily sure it's more fun to just increase the power of everyone individually, because
you can't just generate dopamine out of nowhere. Dopamine has a limit, and you can't just like keep amping the numbers and keep creating more and more fun and engaging experiences. Eventually you do have to just settle on what is actually fun. You can't amp the peak without reducing the lows at the same time. As I said, like, it's a complicated discussion, because we're not really talking about power creep. We're talking about relative power creep between different aspects of the game.
The result of you just giga buff power creep Godzilla versus power creep King Kong, you're either on the same level anyway. And maybe I'm crazy, but when they came out with like Overwatch Classic way back in the day, or what, months ago, or whatever it was, I kind of thought it was refreshing. I'm like, oh my god, like, people have one movement cooldown? Oh my goodness, like, I know where things are. And we talk about like the legibility of the game, as well as the chaos going on. They put it to 5v5 with the intention to make it easier to understand, but then you overkitted everything as if we're playing 6v6.
Yep, damn right.
Anyway, to me, like, I think 66 in Overwatch 1, for the most part, was easier to follow.
Hey, there you go. What a fucking take from Fredo. What a man. What were your take again about 6v6 and 5v5? Because it seems like that's invalidated some of the things you said in the past. But anyway, Jesus Christ, that is one hell of a take. He's agreeing with me. Yes. I think 6v6 in Overwatch 1 was infinitely easier to follow, because the two tanks gave more structure to the play space, and obviously there was less stuff in the game, less cooldowns, less visual effects. So individually there was less stuff everywhere pressing you as a new player. Crazy, great take, love that. First time I've ever heard anyone have this take. What a great take, man. Like that is genuinely impressive from him.
Because the characters were a little bit less until they started adding, like AoE healing and multi-shields and all that later on. But so that's okay. Power creep. I'm nervous about it personally. Is your issues with the Ana perks based on like the...
I like when Fredo's being a smug asshole on my side. True, dude. True. As long as he's right, I don't care. He can be as smug as he wants. You're not allowed to be smug, and it's like when you got a colleague at work. You're not allowed to be shit at your job and an asshole. You can be shit at your job and be nice. You can be an asshole and be good at your job. Both do not work.
The power creep of it, or limits on power, like, where do you feel about that,
With the Ana one, it just personal preference of how I choose to pick that hero, right? If I was going to play a more headshot heavy hero, I would play like Widowmaker or something. I like Ana because she body shots. I like Juno because she body shots. So it's more of just like, this is what I know the hero as, and I want to keep it as that kind of thing. But as a whole with power creep, I think that it's shown to kind of be a good thing, because I think Marvel Rivals is an example of like what Overwatch could be cranked up to like 10 in the sense of power creep of a lot of win buttons in a way. I don't think Overwatch should ever get to that point, but I think with how successful and popular it's been among like the more general gamer, it's a sign that maybe Overwatch could take some notes and lean more towards that side, which is kind of what they're doing with Perks, whether or not that has anything to do with Marvel Rivals. And I think another point of reference with the whole power creep thing is Overwatch Classic, like you mentioned. It is just preference and flavor. Like some people might like that slower version of the game with less like cooldowns, and it's more just simple in a way. But a lot of people also play Overwatch Classic, and they're like, "Damn, now I know why we don't have Overwatch Classic anymore. Now I know we're not playing."
I can tell you as well. The word on the street is that the play numbers for Overwatch Classic tanked after the first day or two, and 6v6 as poorly implemented. I think some of the balance patching was, and it was pretty consistently well played, like for a long period of time.
I will say though, I did like the
Damn right, guys, damn right.
Moth Meta one more than I thought I would. Like compared to from the Classic to then Moth Meta, I actually enjoyed Moth Meta a lot. It was really fun to play. I didn't enjoy back in the day as much, but going back to it was like, oh, this is kind of cool. This is a cool version of Overwatch.
Maybe because they didn't make the Classic patch right. I don't think that would have changed it significantly, to be honest.
I don't mind this at all. So.
All right, then back to
Moth Meta was pretty nice. I'm actually upset in retrospect that I didn't play the Moth Meta. I feel like that would have been entertaining for me. At that time, I was just too caught up in doing things to put a bit of time into it.
I'm sorry.
get yours in, and then
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, I think that the tricky thing is just like you were saying, it's like I agree with you on the on a headshot thing, but then like the challenge is then okay, but you were the one that said that you liked Bastion because of the playstyle adjustments, right? So it's that balance, right? Like how far from the hero fantasy of Ana do you want to depart? How much variety do you want to depart? Because I wouldn't say Bastion changes what you.
I don't think the headshot on Ana is a playstyle diversity thing. I think it's unlocks a skill ceiling to the character that is unreasonable. Right, and if at high level that skill ceiling is mandatory, and you change the way that you interact with basically what you're doing is you're changing the genre, right? Like it's like you signed up to play a horror experience, and then like it turned into a comedy halfway through, and you're like, what's happening here? It's not anything that is better or worse than the other. You've just changed it significantly. In terms of playstyle, in terms of the types of things you're doing, I think being able to swap that on the fly is more interesting than just saying, screw it, we can just like do a different character, right? Like that's kind of how I feel about this. It feels more like you are changing your genre instead of changing the theme within the genre. I don't know.
You feel like the hero should do is just kind of staying within its hero limitations, but just slightly different. And maybe the Ana headshot just goes a little bit too far out. Here's a question for you, Fredo. Okay, so you talk about power creep, you talk about kit complexity. I agree with you.
A lot of these perks, including the headshot on Ana, there was a reason they designed Ana to not headshot. I think there's a reason they designed Ana not to headshot, but I think that reason is more to do with the skill curve of the hero than anything else, and the attention span of the hero. And I think it's going to cause power scaling problems at the high ranks when it actually becomes good to use the headshot perk on Ana in like masters and up. There's a problem. Maybe if the headshot perk was better in kind of like diamond or plat, I'd say that's reasonable. But like you're scaling this situational aspect of I want to shoot flyers and other stuff like that, and you're also scaling on a very high skill to value scaling in terms of headshots. I don't think both of those should happen at the same time for this character in particular. Like I think people are being a bit too general. I think this very specific one is probably just like bad. Yeah, it's a nothing perk since you can't meet the aiming requirement. Of course, yeah, 100%. And it shouldn't be a incredibly high power scaling one and one that is situational at exactly the same time. To me, I don't think that works. But that's kind of like the problem. The choice system in the perks doesn't work in concept, in my opinion, in a load of cases, because the perks invalidate each other and /or cause different situational benefits that invalidate each other there, or one becomes a no-brainer because of the situation, or the power level's slightly off. There's so many different reasons that I don't think the perk system and the choice system is good. I get that it reduces counter swapping. I think it does reduce counter swapping, but yeah, at a certain point you're still just balancing, right? You're just balancing, and I think that kind of sucks.
66 was like objectively the higher skill ceiling as a team, coaching 6v6 is a lot more complicated. Not a lot more complicated, but like there's another player, right? Especially the off tank, the guy that has to synergize with his tank. But rival, it's like individual complexity versus team complexity. I think it's kind of what you were talking about, where you have these kits where there are more choices, more things, and there's just a lot more to do, right? Versus 6v6 that has simpler kits that for individuals, but because there's so much synergy between the kits, whether it's D.Va, Ryan, Winston, so on, there's like a lot of skill expression. I don't know if I'm putting words in your mouth, but that would be...
Yep, simple kits interacting in a complicated way makes a genre. You don't need complicated kits necessarily.
kind of my interpretation of your statement.
Yeah, and the problem is with this, there's 10 different...
You've definitely seen less swapping. I agree with you, there is less swapping. However, one might ask what happens in a month down the line. There's going to be less swapping because psychologically people don't want to swap their perks. It always was going to happen, but the question still remains, right?
Versions of Overwatch 1. So there's no way to really discuss this meaningfully because there's the slow version, and then I'm willing to admit.
But even the slow version, there's a lot of complexity, like team-wise. It's just a different tempo, right?
And we as a player base felt different about it at the time as well, right? So it seemed like a big jump in complexity from Team Fortress 2, but we go back to play Classic now, and you're like, most people think it's a snooze fest.
Right.
In my defense, I like a lot of these versions, okay? So I like Marvels, I like 1.0. There's a good number of these hero shooter like versions that I can point to and be like, I like that. I think perks make a lot more sense once we add bans, because the beauty of them having inherent imbalances is like we can look at the hero roster and be like, well, to some degree, I think they killed my boy Junk. I think there's like actually no point to pick Junk because his perks are so bad in comparison to the other DPS that are kind of similar but have just way better perks. So because of that, his tier list, as opposed to maybe pre-perk 5v5, a lot of these characters are pretty close in terms of their balance output, which some people find either boring or oppressive or counter-picky in a big counter-pick circle. Now with the perks, they add texture between the characters, which I think is inherently a good thing, but then I get nervous about it in some instances because do I really need certain characters to now have just a higher time to kill or higher stats, higher this, higher that? Like, that's not what excites me about it. It's more about how are we making those plays? But
Wasn't he talking about bans a second ago? How did we get here?
To some degree, even you know, to the Ana and Juno headshotting, we've already got supports that are DPS. I mean, like a third of them are DPS anyway. So it's like now you have another option. You're only picking 2 supports anyway. You know, if it's Juno headshotting you or Ana headshotting you or Bap or Kiri, it's whatever. This is just kind of what supports are in this game, for better and worse. So I you know, a classic ENTP point here, just arguing against myself. I don't really know what I want at this point.
I mean, there's a nuance. There's a nuance. You know, there's good and bad. Like you talk about like individual kit complexity, and then you're a big Rivals fan, which is I'm convinced. So I don't have any insight here, but I'm convinced that Rivals is why they pushed perks as hard as they did. I know that the system was in development for a long time. We've known. I don't remember what Gavin Winter said on my streamer, Alec. Like I don't remember when. I know it was at least early 2024, right? But I'm pretty sure Rivals proved to them that hey, people don't mind too many buttons necessarily, maybe more so.
Yeah.
You know, it would have been a bad lesson to learn because you do not know what happens a couple of months down the line in Rivals. Like you just don't know. So it would be really bad to like base stuff there.
You know this more than anybody, Fredo. All Overwatch devs, no way. Keep it simple.
No, they were so purist with just how you had to feel in the immersion of it, because especially coming from WoW, like they're really thinking of every single moment and the sense it had to make and the synergy between you and like your inputs. Now it's just kind of over the top. It's like wacky, like Zen can fly or something. Like who knows?
Fuck. If I hear another person say the word wacky in my life, I'm gonna lose it.
where the limits will be. But
it's like Magneto, right? Magneto has the concept of Zarya bubbles badly implemented to the point where it doesn't tie into the like base focus of the kit, and he has a shield and his left click charger, his right click, but neither has been given them the attention they need in order to be impactful in any way. His ult is interesting, don't get me wrong. I think his ult's actually probably like one of the most interesting parts of the kit, but it just feels horribly wasteful, right? Just wasteful of concepts. It feels boring, right? It is it's so dull to me, just putting more and more onto characters. The good, clean design, and I think people do like good, clean design, is having a concept and building that concept into the kit. Like, as I say, Invisible Woman, AoE, pull, double jump, invisibility, shield, right? Those 5 elements, I could remove any one of these elements and that character still exists in exactly the same way, and is exactly the same amount of interesting, in my opinion. Honestly, obviously the pool's the most interesting part, so you probably want to keep that, but still, like, you do not need all these extra layers in order to make something that interacts with other characters and their own characters, enemies and allies in an interesting way.
There's some that I was thinking of too. And I think
one of Hog's perks should have been giving his own gun back. Why isn't it? But like, why isn't that a perk for Hog? For what possible reason is that not a perk? It should have been one of the. I guess it should have been a minor, since you'd always pick that, and you'd be really upset if you didn't pick that. Maybe it's an implementation problem. Maybe there's something else happening behind the scenes there. They'd already made it, so I assume they could make it.
Spilo, I watched your vid on this as well. Like May's perks, I start to cringe a little bit on some of these. Okay.
Perks so much.
Okay, so I'm gonna keep whining about Junkrat's bad perks, but May gets extended primary fire, which is a slow, and then a slow on her ult fire.
Don't you put the old right click? True. Yeah, the button creep. Well, we could be like rivals and use the F and C keys like they do with the amount of fucking shit in their game on every single character. FC. I'm surprised they don't use the G and T keys as well, like we're playing an MMO. Surprised they not use the F keys to bind stuff.
Fire. Like, how many times do we have to? So
don't forget X. Oh yeah, X is also a key. Guyliner, sorry. Yeah. F, X, and C.
Okay with this? What I kind of hope they do is reduce the power in the kits a bit.
I turned on Moon Knight the other day, right? Let's go. Let's pull it up actually. I'm getting
For this Moon Knight guide,
for
I
this
worked
Moon Knight
a
guide.
one-to-one target. So the
Team up. There you go. Right, just look at this bullshit, guys. Okay, so that's on the screen, so it's a little bit awkward. Right, look. Right, so we got the team up ability, we got a double jump, we got a right click, we got a glide, we got an ank, and we got a grapple. This character has an ank that he can shoot, a left and a right click, and movement abilities. That's all he has. There's nothing in this kit. Why does he have 16 buttons? Right? Why does he have 16 buttons? Like genuinely, why didn't you just make whole space a left shift? Why are there so many buttons? My dude, like, what are you doing? Like, this is stupid. Like, this is ridiculous. Just adding all this extra complexity, even when the kits are simple in Rivals, like the kits are still complicated. This is Moon Knight in Rivals, so this is all of the buttons, F, C, and E. Like, it's so ridiculous for no reason. Why is the glide on this HUD? Nobody knows, but they're incredibly inefficient with their concepts and other things like that. The funny part is, in my opinion, Moon Knight is a character with an incredibly underdeveloped kit, right? All that for him to have 42% win rate, yeah. It makes no sense whatsoever. It's an incredibly simple character. In fact, I think it's too simple. It's boring in the implementation. It doesn't really do anything that's cool. There's not really any interactivity. But they've added each individual movement ability as an extra button for no reason. Yeah, the baton thing. His melee is listed in his tab. Let's see if I can get the tab screen. There's no way this guy is not going through the tab screen in this, right? Surely you go through the okay, well, guess we're gonna have to scroll down. Give me control, Moon Knight clip, Moon Knight guard, rivals. What's up, rivals? Don't care. Let's go. Are these people using the tab screen, or are they just not using the tab screen?
Team, and then left and right clicking absolutely shreds them before they even know what happened. The onks have so much value.
And actually, while I edited the video, that's not just him sitting. I don't care. Whatever. He reads the tab screen himself. That's the whole point. He can't show his source. Yeah, it's like all those plagiarism videos that just don't show their sources because their source is, I fucking copied this.
Perks to be the flavor power, because she already was kind of obnoxious and not that great at the same time. That's kind of my issue. And especially when you think of like the 5v5 problems and the counter pickathon, to me, it's less of having another tank to support you and more sim, May, blah, blah, blah. Like they're giga buff to be able to, their win rate's got to be at a certain point. So it has to hard counter X, Y, and Z. And I think other than...
Hi, gorgeous. Love you. My thoughts are you almost had a really good point and a bit upset that you didn't go into it. That there are no aggressive bursty options in Rivals to use aggressively. So everything in the game in terms of cooldowns uses denial. You almost got really close to a thought there. And I'm a bit sad that you didn't go like full ham on it, because I feel like that's one of the problems with Rivals. Honestly, Yeetle made some good points. Fredo's been crazy cogent, actually. Crazy cogent. I actually really vibing him. He's made some real good points. You have been pretty... I mean, you've been you. I mean, yeah. Don't have the Afro gene where I go off the goop. Avril has had some weird takes I don't necessarily agree with, but aside from that, yeah, nothing too crazy.
And maybe Doomfist getting a parry, okay? I don't know, I feel that sounds a little scary, but now he can parry an Honest Sleep, for example. There's other characters now that are, counterpicking. That's kind of where I wanted to lead this to. Like Mei now is a much harder counterpick against the things she already countered. So that's a problem I have. It's like a lot of people, they dream, when I was reading a lot of comments about this, okay? Because people are like, oh, Fredo, you're just bitter, sad old man.
Just not quite as comfortable going unhinged mode with my takes. Well, it's extremely comfy on your fence, isn't it, dude? Nuances for the weak.
And didn't get invited to the spotlight, so now you're upset. The perk system increasing counterpicking in certain instances, I don't think people like. Now, luckily we have bans coming, but that starts to make me nervous of it, because is Mei freezing more and more fun? I thought we went through
yeah, Mei right click is a massive down. If you want my my Cliff Notes opinions on perks, loads of boring stuff in there. Let's be honest. I think we all know that there's a load of boring stuff. It's a hard one. I don't like when there is situational power paired off against straight power increases. I don't like when there's no choice. I think there is a trade-off that you have to make where if there is a ability that is situational, like two choices that are situational independent of each other that you can pick as alternatives, there has to be no choice there, right? Because you're either picking straight power sometimes or you're picking survivability. And I don't think that's going to help the counter-swapping problem with tanks specifically, because if you're being forced to pick the survivability cooldown instead of the power cooldown, you're still being hated on. It's just in terms of what perk you can pick and not anything else. And I think there's a couple of different examples of that. There's a lot of stuff in here that definitely needs a second draft, right? There's a lot of weird kind of like, I don't know. I thought they'd have so many of these done and be so good at them after them doing the PvE stuff and having all those concepts to work off. But yeah, gave them about 55 alternate perks in LA. Doing God's good work, Spilo. Nice.
Years of this, of going in circles with Mei, you added the 2 to the game, and you said we're reducing CC. Now we're putting CC back into perks. Cassidy's getting 2 flashbangs. Like to me, oh my god, I'm losing the plot here. I'm starting to turn red. Someone call me down, okay? Because like I feel so.
Spent all morning prior to the feedback session, like 4 hours. Yeah, you said in this you spent you went ham on the feedback session. That's amazing. Ate breakfast with a notebook. I do think perks have the same problem as kind of like team ups and rivals, where they're just needless complexity on the end of the kit and they might not actually help that much. I fully agree that Blizzard needed to do the perk system. I think it's amazing, honestly. I wish they had gone more crazy with it. I wish, if they were going to flip the table anyway and just put all the Lego onto the floor, I wish they'd at least mix some bullshit in there, right? I said earlier, like, make the ults like 20% more effective so everything dies faster. So that when people come back into the game after they like rejoin Overwatch from Rivals, they think, oh, cool, like, it's fun and wacky like with Rivals, why not? Thing about my communication is when you're respectful, you can earn that respectful pushback. Yeah, agreed. I told them to face some to their face some perks were bad, and then told them why and said what I'd suggest instead and why I'd like it better. Use their own parameters for what a perk should be, so I followed their philosophy. Yeah, no, that's really good feedback, and hopefully they took it on board. It's the things like junk trap being thrown a little bit further. There's some that just don't match in any way in terms of power level. I'm also like, I would just like to say the Ana perks are absolute ass. Just terrible. I'm sorry, the 2-second slowdown after being slept only affects tanks and hates on tanks more. And the you almost made it to the Group Up podcast? Oh, don't tell me that now. The Group Up podcast dead and the Rivals podcast is now a thing. Almost made it. I think my problems with the Group Up podcast were that by the time it had finished, there were too many people on it that agreed with each other. And I think I'd be a bit of spice without being an asshole to people if I was on it. I was offered to take over Group Up podcast and I turned it down. Would have invited you. Oh, cutie. You're adorable. Yeah, I think it's probably just too much work, right? It probably is like 3 hours of organization a week to get that working properly. Maybe it's less. But yeah, it seems like quite a lot of work, right? In terms of going on it, yeah, I'd love to go on podcasts like that, but it's one of those where it just Just don't have time? Yeah, I can see that. Don't have time to move to LA in order to take Chips' job either. Chipser? Custer. Word's hard. Anyway.
So much of this is the things they said they would never do, and now they're like, well, if there's just too much of it, then you'll like it, right? Like come on.
You know what else? What else Marvel proved is that apparently people don't give a crap about CC either. So now there's more CC in Marvel. Guess what? The 2 new heroes coming in, more CC there as well. So people don't mind more buttons, people don't mind more CC, people don't mind power creep.
I think people, no, like, we're like 2.5 months in. People don't like more CC. We literally just had a conversation about how the backlines in Rivals are always like insta-kill or don't do anything. By the way, I'd like to just say, the spoiler's probably already gone, since he stays here for like 5 seconds. Avril was damn right on the Rivals problems, and I called this months ago. Like, he is damn right on all the problems at the high level. It's getting real bad real quick, and I'm closing in on being able to actually put out content. I don't know if I'm ever going to do it, but yeah, closing in on it, so hopefully. It's really concerning that it is such a static game, so long range, so pokey, and then everything revolves around ultimates. I'm really concerned that when they reduce the power of support ultimates, which I think they're going to have to do, what's going to happen is the game's going to resolve off every aggressive ultimate in the game. Or if you reduce the duration of them, what's going to happen is there's going to be an aggressive ult used, like if you use a blade, they're going to trance, and then you're just going to wait, because there's so many more aggressive ultimates than there are support ultimates. Do you see my Lord of the Rings Online take? Yeah, I saw that take. I think I disagree with it in a part because Rivals is very self-centered power, whereas what you were describing with Lord of the Rings Online was more like the GOATS meta, where you had to combine stuff in order to make power spikes within your team that break through it. And I think GOATS is, in general, ridiculously more healthy than what we currently got in Rivals. Yeah. Me more throwing them a bone than a serious idea. Yeah, it's really, really concerning to me, because it's one of those where it's like, you have just individual characters that are just able to break through everything with an ult and nothing else happens. Like literally, Fredo was talking 2 weeks ago. He put out a video that was like how... He said like how Wolverine's a good design for the character, and I was like, what are we talking about, guys? and now we're doing a podcast where Wolverine and Bucky are destroying the game, and the only thing that happens in neutral, because they're the only things that can break through the sustain of the support ultimates before fights start. It's like, it's so bad, man. Doesn't have good synergies and utility. Everything is self-sufficient, raw damage and healing. Yeah, 100%. You say it's a better casual experience. I think, and the first thing I said about Rivals, like, I think this was like 3 or 4 days after it launched, was that Rivals is really good right now because everyone's stupid and they're all feeding, right? They're all walking into the enemy team, they're feeding like idiots. So there's chaos, right? But the moment that people learn the spacing and learn to respect other things and don't die randomly like fucking idiots, what's going to happen is we're going to be going into an ult meta, because that's the only thing that's going to kill things, because they're so ridiculously strong. Discord, Bubbles, Matrix, Armor Pack, Boop. Yep. Goats is more MMO than Rivals, 100%. I think Goats is a lot more healthy. But that's the thing. They have purposely... Can you tell me? Because I've talked to people about this, and I have no idea why. Rivals has purposely not put cleaving tanks into the game, right? Purposely not. Tanks that take other characters' resources like conduits, they have not put it into the game. Rivals has also not put bursty aggressive cooldowns into the game, like Annonade or other things like that, stuff that heals the tanks. Moira Orb is not in Rivals, right? Moira Orb, of all things, that type of ability is not in the game that can be used aggressively to push. What was the other thing that was also missing from the game? Oh, Mercy. Mercy's not in the game. Mercy type concepts that heal reliably on angles isn't in the game. And therefore, there's no type of character that wants to go off on the support and angle, and therefore there's no off angles. There's just main and flank. There's so many things. It has the visibility of depth without any depth. I knew you'd be on the same page as me, because you're normally right about things, and I'm obviously always right about things. I do, by the way, sometimes admit when I'm wrong. I know for some of you don't think that happens. It does happen with me. Something Venture, something. Venture was played with Zarya that one time. Yeah, that was the thing that happened. Potential of depth in individual hero design, but it just clunks it up. Yeah, I think it's, and I've quoted myself many times, Spylo, because I'm obviously very intelligent, which is the thing that I enjoy with these games is very simple kids interacting in an incredibly complicated way, because there's so much density to Overwatch, right? Everything's so close to the genre in general. It's all in the 3D space. 6 people interact with 6 people at the same time. There's your depth. You don't need to put individual character complexity into it, because the complexity is in simple characters interacting in a complicated way, right? That's it. That was the fun. And meanwhile, like, we're talking about team ups, we're talking about perks, and I just don't think they're necessary. The irony of interesting melee kit designs that struggle in high level play because flankers struggle in the meta design of the game. Yeah, well, every single support has a get off me ability, right? And the get off me abilities don't even require skill for some reason. It's just Mantis Sleep. Mantis Sleep is the pinnacle of what the fuck are you doing in your video game, in my opinion. And there's no aggressive use case either, right? You can't throw stuff at other people. It just kind of, yeah, it kind of sucks. If Mantis Sleep had an aggressive use case into the enemy team, Mantis Sleep would be reasonable. If Luna Snow's Ice Block had an aggressive use case, it would be reasonable. But there's no ability like this, like Nade, that's going to be half off cooldown and half on cooldown to create textured matchups where you have to tell whether things... Like, that's the point of flankers. You're meant to be tracking what they've used to know if you can go in on them. But it's not, right? It's not, because they're always going to have the damn ability, because there's no aggressive use case for the ability. Your takes are almost exclusively accurate, just often scale of importance. I'm not allowed to get passionate about random bullshit that doesn't matter. Yeah. Melee characters don't need one-shots if you don't have rival sustain. Yeah, I'm just concerned that if you bring down the sustain, the tank experience is going to be even worse. It is insane to me that Rivals did not launch with the same amount of supports and tanks as it does DPS, but they obviously wanted DPS, melee DPS to be the off-tank style thing that was like taking up the rest of the space, but it just doesn't. Yeah, I really am struggling with Rivals right now. Created a nearly insolvable problem for pro meta. Yeah, you move down support ults, and then DPS ults take over and it flips immediately. Can't tune down raw healing without tanks getting rolled. I'd also say that maybe the reason why they don't have things like Ananade is because they'd be disproportionately awful if played with melee DPS, because they can use that power burst really sharply by going into the enemy team's backline, so yeah. I really do think Rivals is in a pickle. I call it untying the Rivals knot. There's a knot in this game of interesting design choices that I have no fucking idea why they made them. Like, no idea whatsoever. I think they might be going insane. It's crazy to me. Like, why is there no off-angle support apart from Lunar Orb in the game? Because somebody tell me why one of the most simple things to make is not in the game. Why is there no aggressive cooldowns like Moira Orb? How do you accidentally make a game without making Moira Orb in it? How is there no Reinhardt and Winston in the game when they're the most interesting tanks? Everyone had always said they're the most interesting tanks in Overwatch, and accidentally not make these? Surely it's a choice. Surely they purposely not include these 3 things. But why? For what reason? It's a choice, yes. And I'm thinking maybe they're just like independently trying to reduce GOATS type stuff. They want perma-dopamine? Yeah, I don't think that's it. I think aggressive cooldowns are dopamine, right? Clicks, buttons, and accessibility, it's fine for its audience. No, I don't think it's fine for the audience, because I think the audience that they want is the audience that's going to be there in 6 months' time. I think the audience, the exponential decay, the 3 different stages of video game, the 3 different audiences, right? You have the individual peak, and that's blue on blue, so that looks dumb. And then you have the learning curve right there, and then you have the long-term play, right? And I don't think that these type of things is good for the learning curve, like team ups. I don't think that's good. I don't think that's consistent, and I don't think that most of their other stuff is good for the long-term play. People still watch The Simpsons, and it's garbage. That's true. But however, I would argue that, and yeah, people will do it as comfort food if they already know it, but I'd argue that The Simpsons viewers are the ones down here that are so crazy they don't... It's new. Nobody can innovate their game fast enough to outrun player boredom. Nobody can do that. That's ridiculous. Maybe Fortnite can do it, I guess. But Fortnite is one of those games where it has like the perfect gameplay loop, where these new players get to stand in the corner of the map on their own and collect rubble until they die. These players have like barely anything to learn, and there's no like meaning of depth. Oh, by the way, I saw the thing about rank stuff that you made. I agree entirely. Marvel Rivals rank system is sus as hell. It is sussy. I would not be surprised, and this is a controversial Ralph take TM. I would not be surprised if they are increasing someone's win rate for buying skins. The only reason why I consider they wouldn't do that is specifically because they would be scared about getting caught out. I think that's something they 100% would be doing. 100%. Celestial games and Rivals are really bad. There's no competitive integrity whatsoever to the system. The system is it's a progression system masquerading as a rank system. It is not anything to do with splitting up players by team. You saw very clearly when people got D-ranked by the that's the thing. The D-ranking is the only thing keeping the de-ranking people and doing the rank resets is the only thing keeping that game consistent, because it's got a net positive win rate. I went 52-3 in a game and lost. My entire team was negative. I've never seen that in a hero shooter game ever. Engagement optimized matchmaking? Did you engage with the game more after that game, or did you turn it off by curiosity? The key is to turn off the game after that and turn it back on so that you can tell the engagement optimized matchmaking that yeah. Didn't get any resources, you were just a Spider-Man going off on your own. Hard flanking, killing 3 again and again. Pleb. Reset the engagement AI? Yeah, exactly. Winter Soldier, hard flanking. Yeah, well maybe that's why you lost, because you're bad. Team dies to 1 ult, rinse and repeat. Yeah, I've also experienced the worst flippy games or one-sided games in my life in Rivals. That's the other thing that and I think it's partially to do with the matchmaking and not actually separating people by SR or by skill level, because it doesn't care to, it just cares to keep engagement. But like every single game, stomp to the end of the match, right? Or I stomp to the end of the match. It's either one way or the other for some reason, shape or form. And I'm thinking, right, maybe it's a combination of the melee characters and the sustain and the ultimate focus, that all of these things conspired together to make the game incredibly flippy. Anyway, can you stop harassing my chat? They don't, they do come into your chat and insult you, to be fair, but I was gonna say they don't, but yeah.
It's actually, by the way, the perks in Overwatch.
Gotta go milk my goats. Love you. Have a great day, dude. Ciao.
Isn't even more buttons. I'll just quickly say as well. Unless we're talking about like one of my, to answer Fredo's question for 30 minutes ago, is one of the other perks I think was super cool that I didn't talk about is actually Reaper's new right click for the long range damage. Except for the fact that you can also use it at melee.
I'd just like to say Reaper is absolute ass. Like really bad. Like Reaper's terrible right now. These perks are going to make him so much worse. He's the person that's been given the most tank hate tools in this, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Burst damage. Just having some like kind of long range utility there for damage is pretty nice. But no, I don't like May's primary fire getting just extra range, because that's just a stat increase. It's another raw stat increase.
Hydration? Shit.
And I'm not about that.
I love the idea that I've started streaming, and then everyone's come onto my stream to try and group people up to not watch my stream. Is great.
We share our brainstorm on May.
Yeah, sure, why not?
The ideas that came. So Yeetle, yeah, I was sat next to, I monopolized Yeetle again. And I'm like, Yeetle, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? And we were like brainstorming some May stuff. All right, so one of these I shamelessly stole from somebody else. But wall, you guys know how Lifeweaver's pedal bounces you if you jump at the top? What if you could bounce at the top of wall for like an extra 5-6 meters of verticality? So it's a minor perk. You wall yourself, you launch yourself up. You freeze the floor, you move faster. Just like there was actually an April Fool's patch, right? So horizontal mobility or vertical mobility. Just
perfect. Yeah, actually perfect. Like that is 100% 2 mobility type things.
a little bit. She's not a mobile character, but it's a little bit more. Okay, but remove all the minor perk crap. Okay, then this one's a little weird, but your Blizzard doesn't freeze people anymore. It slows them in DOTs, but when May is in it, she gets a speed boost inside her own Blizzard and a damage boost inside her own Blizzard. So you can actually Blizzard yourself and debuff yourself. And it doesn't solid freeze anymore. So it's a trade-off. You got to kind of choose. And then this one is kind of a reimagination of what they were trying to do with Ice Block, which was like discourage people from camping it. exiting ice block is a pulse slow and damage.
Oh, I got Spilo into chat and I didn't get to complain about it being in 6v6.
But not while you're in it. So you could actually get in a duel.
These are real good takes, by the way. Like, this is great.
Enter and exit ice block instantly for like a quick pulse, but you lose your defensive cooldown. But it's not like free value of you sitting inside your ice block. But basically the idea is like, I agree with you, Fredo. Like, she already does CC. She already...
What do you mean Fredo is a brand risk? What do you mean? I've heard Fredo quite strong. Have you not seen his musculars? Have you not seen Fredo's muscles? He's quite strong.
Is slow.
What's
The
brand risk
50%
about
range
that?
slow on her alt fire is so unbelievably tragic to play into as a tank player.
Spido feedback session might be our savior. Yeah, I feel like he's literally coming into my chat just to give me mental health support and tell me it's going to be okay. He's like, Ralph, just calm down. Shut up. It's going to be all right. I gave feedback. It's all right.
It's the worst. I played one Wrecking Ball game and I wanted to slam my head in the keyboard. I could not build momentum.
Spider the savior of Overwatch? Oh no, 100%. Yeah, no, he is. I expect he got offered that job or told to apply for that job. Obviously, he was in the last round of interviews and didn't go to it because he had to move. If he was, because you have to move to be at Blizzard, because Blizzard is one of those companies. Specifically because he gave that amount of feedback last year, 100%.
It's one alt fire, and you primary fire, you're just not getting out.
Custer got that position? No? Yes, Custer got that position. Honestly, I have never heard Custer's takes. I've never really watched any Custer. If people can get me some, and put it in the videos channel, some Custer giving good takes on interesting things. Somebody said he'd done some hero rework type stuff in the past. I'd love to watch that. That'd be good.
But we were just thinking, like, what are some things that are going to, like you said, Fredo, maybe even dial some of the kit strength back. I don't think we even have to do that, but and then kind of like...
All I heard was Custer calling Sam the Ben Shapiro of Overwatch. Yep.
Okay, now what do you want to do with Mei? Do you want to go duel people with your ice block? Do you want to be more creative with your ultimate? Do you want a little bit of verticality? Do you want a little bit of horizontal movement speed? I just think there's a lot of things that they could do. And again, like I said, I'm trying to be not too critical here because it was their first iteration. And I think
but of course you don't want to be too critical, but like the Junkrat 50% trap throw distance and the Roadhog one, come on, dude, like, come on, like, I hope that's what Spilo said. He went into the room for the feedback session and was like, come on, guys, like, come on, was this a time limitation? Like, what's happening here? Can we think about something better?
First iteration was pretty good, but I agree with you. This is something that they are going to have to adjust moving forward, I think. Maybe not my ideas, of course, but something along the lines of moving away from not just doing what they do, but better. It's the same problem I have with the break perks.
Yeah. Okay, but Sam went full Ben Shapiro. I don't think he went full Ben Shapiro. I listened to one of his takes the other day. I think it was last week, Saturday. And I thought it was, being clipped or being perceived in a bad way, yeah. Ben Shapiro coded. Maybe Ben Shapiro coded, actually. Yeah, to be fair.
Spilo for balance. Your ideas are good. Like another example I thought of this, though, at some point, I think it's in Overwatch 2, they made Mei reload while in freeze, right? This is kind of what I mean. Like, I just think, like, over time, some of these characters, you know, Cassidy gets damage resistance on his roll, and it's like every character has to have 10 attributes to every ability, it feels like. Whereas I think just, it's less taking a button away and more just those attributes that I think add more flavor in the perk systems. Then you start to have actual trade-offs as opposed to just amplifying the overkit that you had. So Rivals has the problem of overkit in terms of it being bloated, but now Overwatch 2, so many years later, there's so many status effects or immunities or everything's so durable, and they've done this kind of intentionally. This is what they wanted the game to feel like, and I think it starts to become problematic because, well, and both these games struggle with this. So it's not like one fixes it. They do it for different reasons, you know. Like support is over way too easy in Marvel Rivals, and then everything's individually sustainable with just multiple ways to survive itself in Overwatch 2. And I'm not so sure that's going to change much in any iteration anytime soon.
What's y'all's stance on you and Fredo, especially Avril, on balance for fun or balance for balance's sake, and when does it become toxic? Because you guys have both had pretty public opinions on this, and I find the conversation pretty interesting. Feels
well, I'm right.
Balance for fun versus balance for balancing's sake. I feel like Fredo's going to have a really weird take here, but balance for balancing's sake does not have really much to do with fun for the most part. Okay, so here's an analogy from the video about the garden with the weeds. Like the knife that you use to cut down the weeds in the garden, or the trowel you use weeding a garden, is not there to reduce the diversity of types of things available in the garden. It's there to make sure the things that are actually healthy in the garden and you do actually like grow better. not everything can exist at the same time, and cutting down certain things do allow other things to exist and allow the average health of the garden to get better. Like that's the point of balance. And so you can make more fun things if you balance properly than if you don't balance properly. And you can make the average experience more fun if you balance properly compared to if you don't balance properly. And also, I'm just gonna say, balancing is not a black box crazy thing. It's reasonably simple. It's reasonably simple.
Right, so Avril can go first.
What do you mean balance for balance sake? Do you mean just mean like, oh, it's boring?
You had a
Time
big
to balance
tweet
some random
talking about
stuff.
people overestimate the value of balance. I remember this. It was one
I
of
can
your
go into that
educational
tweet.
threads.
I think I just need to understand the question. I can go into the tweet if you like.
Yeah,
What
do it.
was the question?
Just a discussion on balance. Where you think the community gets it wrong? Because like I said, you guys have both had
Well,
pretty public
the
opinions
communi-
about how. Yeah, go ahead.
The community gets it wrong. And
I love Spylo, how he leads people down the garden path and gets them to discuss things. The best part about Spylo is he never has things to say. He always leads people to say the things, right?
since the entire point of the tweet that I made, it seems like a while ago now. I think this was a tweet that was from a while back. At least it was over a couple months. But it's that the community in Overwatch, especially, less so in Marvel Rivals at the moment, although I suspect it will increase over time, is that people are a little bit too caught up on balance changes and how it actually impacts the game. Whereas I never meant to say that balance doesn't impact the game. Obviously it does, but people think, especially the average player, that balance impacts the game way more than it actually does. So if you are just a quick play player and your MMR is not particularly high, or you're a middle rank player, balance probably doesn't actually impact your game as much as you think it does. Most people like to externalize their locus of controls, like, well, if I lose because my bad teammates, or
So his take was essentially like, haha, mid-rank players being dumb. Was that the take?
high ping, I lagged, or they blame.
Because I hear all of the time, Overwatch is boring because it's been balanced too much, right? And Rivals shouldn't be balanced at all because, yeah.
balance, like, oh, just because they played a broken character, my character's just underpowered, so that's why I lost. People, no one likes to admit that they just suck, which is what I think would cause majority of people.
This is a 2 on the 10 scale for hotness of this take. This is very
games.
boring.
Well, probably because you suck a little bit, but no one wants to admit that because it's kind of harsh, and no one likes to hear that. So it's easier to blame something else. And balance typically ends up being the number one scapegoat that a lot of people like to blame. At minimum, number two. Sometimes blaming your teammates is number one scapegoat. But when you play a game really casually, I would like to imagine that people like truly play the game casually actually never even look at a patch note. Like someone that just gets off work, plays a couple of games of Overwatch, and then has
Okay, we get it. Casual players are dumb. We get it. It doesn't matter. Yeah, sure. Yeah,
Think about it.
Can we,
I really doubt
come on,
they
guys.
look
Can
at patch
we
notes.
get on with
That's
someone
like
else?
the way to play the game, where that guy is probably.
I really want to get onto the Rivals take, which is Rivals shouldn't be balanced because balancing is what has made Overwatch less fun. When I don't think that's true in any way, shape, or form.
There's many games. It's the same dude who's complaining about balance, probably winning roughly around a similar amount of games. Because if the matchmaking works the way it should, and you're being placed into fair games, you're just winning and losing as you should, based on your skill level. And he doesn't have that dude has no clue what's in the balance notes. He's just playing the game, and if he loses, he loses. If he wins, he wins.
And we should have just said, yeah, my take was really boring. You don't air it.
Overwatch blamed balance so heavily that we got to a stage where like people got so obsessed with balance that balance was literally one of the reasons why people started leaving. And I'm not saying we didn't have periods of time where the game got
That
really
was one of the reasons people started leaving. My dude, we had counter swap meta for 9 months. Like, they released Mauga. Like, oh, you're so obsessed with balance. Balance was boring. It was boring, Avril. It wasn't good. It was terrible. I didn't enjoy it. That's why people left, because it was boring. Balance can make a boring game. It can also reduce interesting things in that game. It is a true statement.
solved and the meta got really stale. And yes, goats existed, even though the majority of people in like, probably low ranks and cookplay didn't really actually play goats or anywhere near the real version of goats. I'm not saying that Release Brig was actually like well designed, or she definitely was overpowered. So I'm not saying like balance, balance is never a thing that should ever be considered in terms of how important it is. But there have been times where like things are
Ice
really
cold
well
take.
balanced actually, or the patch notes make sense.
All
People
right.
still just freak out. And one of the best examples actually is Spylo, when you talked about the Hazard leap nerf, you're like, no, this is a good patch. And everyone's like, this is insane. Hazard, this is not enough. Oh, Hazard's still in my games. It's been 2 minutes and 39 seconds.
He's boring, Avril. He's boring. He's so terribly boring. I hate playing against him because you can't fucking stand anywhere, Avril. Like, yes, he should be gutted because I hate this experience. It's annoying. Fun is not equal to balance. The man is speaking tautology. Yeah, fun isn't equal to balance, but balance can be an obstacle in the way of fun, or balance can reduce fun. Like, it's like, yeah, sure, you don't balance for balance, you balance for fun. Yeah, that's what we were talking about in the first place. If you're balancing for a win rate, you're stupid. We already know that. Come on.
There's 42 microseconds, and I'm
Should have said to Spylo that you hate Hazard. Does he also hate Hazard? Why?
Raging about Hazard because I'm knee-jerking so hard this patch. And then guess what? A couple weeks later, we end up in a fucking ball Torb meta and Hazard's nowhere to be seen. So you ended up being correct.
Oh yeah, 5v5 has awful metas because Ball Torb is boring because they had to rework every single hero for the mode. Oh yeah. Well, Ball was quite interesting in 6v6, wasn't he? Dummy. Yeah. I would take the 6v6 route.
People get so caught up on patch notes that it's just insane. Like people get stun locked by patch notes, especially when you're like a middle rank player. It doesn't matter. On average, on the law of averages, patches don't matter. Yes, Sigma release was busted, Brig release was busted, but that doesn't mean every patch is just like something you have to just go crazy over.
That might be one of my favorite.
Avril also claims Rivals tanks are better, even though they're just boring, chunky DPS. Man, what fuck? Like, I remember Spylo getting jumped on last time, like literally jumping down his throat to tell him that Rivals tanks are interesting, when nobody thinks that true, man. Like, nobody thinks that true. Hazard probably just needs a damage nerf. Yeah, I mean, damage nerfs stop him being able to contest at angles and being able to kill you at angles. I think what damage nerfs don't do is stop him being able to push you out of angles for free. And that's kind of the problem with Hazard. The fact that he can jump at you and you have to leave immediately or die. Even if you remove the die part of that, you still have to leave because he's so ridiculously strong and he demands so little resources in order to keep him like pushing you out, because he can block and push you out at the same time, and he demands like nothing to do that if he stays in armor. Then you just have to leave, right? There's no counterplay for the DPS. He's the worst example of Overwatch 2 tanks, kind of. Yeah, it's bad.
Favorite lines on the podcast so far.
I'll just sit here quietly because I love Hazard. Shut up!
Stun locked by the patch notes, because the community does definitely. First of all, they don't know what they're talking about. Step one, because they'll listen to a guy like Spylo and say he doesn't know what he's talking about, but he does actually. He's pretty good at it.
I thought that was going in. I thought that was going in the other direction. It's like, you're gonna throw me under the bus too. I was like,
you made the right thing. Everyone gave you credit. Everyone was like, "Oh, Spylo doesn't know what he's talking about. He thinks the patch is good. Obviously, a really shitty patch." And then a couple weeks later, you were proven to be right.
I mean, I think
the community takes a massive L. They have no idea what
yeah, there's another bad meta there for something like. Come on, no, Spylo was right.
Talking about.
My point was that we don't know. Like, it was a pretty large percentage debuff, and I think
no, it's a hard one.
Hazard was relatively high enough of a skill floor where people in most ranks weren't going to be abusing him as much. And there's so many factors at play, and I just feel like people can't, for once, and I know the irony of this because I have definitely guilty of this sometimes, but for once, people can't admit ignorance. There's always this patch is perfect, or this patch is like terrible, and like. Everyone, like,
whereas I, the enlightened individual, I'm sitting on my fence. It's so comfy up here on my fence.
I'm not going to name any names here, but there were some professional players and coaches that were freaking out over the Hazard patch. What?
It's not me, by the way. I wasn't freaking out over the Hazard patch. He's not referring to me.
A 1 second nerf is the worst. I'm like, bro, do you not know how math works? Like, that's pretty significant. It might not be enough. And I said that. That's the thing. It's like, I don't know. Maybe it isn't enough. But let's not pretend it's not significant. Let's wait and see. And there's a lot of other moving parts that are happening around it. Like, balance doesn't happen in a vacuum. And yet, like you said, everyone's gonna knee jerk it. It's not saying that you can't look at a patch and be like, that's bad. I've done that a million times. But I think there's some situations where like people are just. They wanted to be upset, and I think what's really good at this is, Avril, this is a complete segue, but your tweet this morning about people being mad at PvE were actually just mad at the broken promise. People were mad at here's my tinfoil.
I think that's probably
true.
People
were mad at that mid-season patch, not because of the lack of Hazard nerf, but because of the lack of content compared to Rivals.
Ooh, that's a good one.
People were hurt, and people were hurt and frustrated and wanted to lash out on anything that they could sink their teeth into because there was nothing. It was just a mid-season patch because they were working on Spotlight. And so people were like, bro, this is how you respond? Like Yeatle was saying earlier,
probably.
You're gonna respond with like a kick to the shins when Rivals has a gun to your throat, right? And that was, but like anyone who's ever been.
No, I think that's true actually. Yeah, I think that's true.
Like those mid-season patches have always been like that. So it's like we shifted our expectations. It didn't deliver. So they're like, all right, you guys suck. Kick. And I was like, dude, this is like the most measured, thoughtful, balanced match we've had in a long time, and we're kicking it over. It's like, oh frick, man, we're so screwed.
Yeah, everyone's done. Everyone's cooked. They're all on Rivals. The people that aren't as sad. Like, yeah.
My favorite is like, oh, Overwatch. Did you see their recent patch? This is how they're responding to Marvels. Oh, lazy devs. And then Spotlight comes. I was like, oh, desperate devs. I can't believe they're doing this. Just clearly desperate. It's like, bro.
I've by the way, like with all of this, it's Twitter drama type stuff. I've never seen anyone do. Whenever anyone says things like this, I never see anyone do something like that or say something like that. And it's always people responding to randoms on Twitter more than anything. Even Reddit's more reasonable than Twitter seems to be at the moment.
You said it was lazy when they didn't do anything big for mid-season. Now they do something big and it's
or there's like one guy being downvoted on Reddit for it. It seems like it's not a popular opinion most of the time that they're actually responding to.
It's like it's just no winning, really, is there? Just no winning.
Yeah, the tribalism does get really tiresome right now. Like I even have people that are like actively super hostile to anything rivals in my chat at times as well. Like, oh no, I don't.
Yeah, I wonder how that feels like.
I did a feedback form for content, and dude, there were some people in that feedback form like, dude, I do not want to see you streaming rivals. It's such a dumb game. I'm like, bro, people are like so emotional and uptight about it right now.
Do you have the opposite audience to Sam? Like literally diametrically.
Yeah,
opposite?
yeah. I think I do too. To be fair, like I think I do. Oh god. Yeah. In general chat, every single time I put anything to do with rivals on stream, rivals turn off stream. Oh, every time. It's so bad.
People hate you play Marvel, and his audience hates him playing anything to do with Overwatch. Not that he does anymore.
Partly. I try to bridge the gap to just do what I'm interested in because I am legitimately. I'm definitely more Overwatch. I'm not gonna lie, but I think it's important to just like bridge the gap because it just gets really boring. And Fredo, you were dealing with this as well. It just gets like. Here's the really dangerous thing too: is when you say or do something in response to crappy people. That's when you really put your foot in your mouth. Because I got a couple of death threats and some other things I won't mention as a result of doing some critical Marvel Rivals content earlier on, and that was a first for me.
Oh my god, am I gonna get screwed? Am I gonna get screwed? Is this? I saw Spilo on the thing of don't send me more death threats. He commented that and pinned it on one of his things. I think it was a bit I thought it was a bit tongue in cheek, but am I gonna get screwed? Was it like?
Like I've been in the scene for a while, and I got some really nasty things. And I had
he's calling out me in this chat.
I hate this urge to get on Twitter, and I'm gonna be like, all right, guys, these freaking Marvel Rivals fans, and I'm like, bro, like it was like it honestly really hurt my feelings. Like, and I've been in the I should have thicker skin at this point in time. And the thing that I had to like stop myself from doing, and I don't know if I was really perfect at this, but was like turning my brain to the point where it's like, dude, I actively freaking hate the Marvel Rivals fan base. Like.
You said it.
Yeah, well, they're 13-year-old males. What do you think the target audience of Marvel Rivals was? It's a free game with big asses. It's 13-year-old boys. Like, that's the target audience. No wonder you fucking hate them. They're awful.
It's hard.
He said what we
it's
were
hard.
thinking. He said what everyone was thinking.
But see, the thing is that that's not true. It's not the Marvel Rivals fan base.
It is.
Random,
It is. It is a Marvel Rivals fan base. I'd say on average, that's the person.
Jerkwads that like. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not gonna go down that rabbit hole. I know it's not really what you're for, but like my point being was like I almost like put myself in I almost inserted myself in the I was almost radicalized by a couple of Twitter messages is what I'm saying, or a couple of YouTube comments, and like that was something that because it would have compromised my enjoyment of the game, and I think that's like I had to be really careful of that. It's hard not to too.
I will say I agree that I don't think they are good. They don't represent the entire fan base. But boy, are they the loudest. Boy, do they make it look like they certainly represent the worst parts. I'll say that much. And the worst parts.
I'm sorry.
We'll put a pin in this. I will say it's sad to hear you getting abused like that, Spilo. And I think
everybody does
sometimes.
You guys all have.
Now we do in the age of social media. I mean, we weren't like evolved to deal with this kind of thing. So
yeah,
it kind of helps sometimes. I think content creators to stick together and gas each other up and just remember like the block or mute button is incredibly powerful. Like it sucks. Yeah.
It's death by 1,000 cuts until you say one thing publicly and then you get criticized for it. It's a standard online thing. I have a lot of patience for people doing stupid stuff in public. Yeah.
Stop sending hate messages to creators, especially thoughtful ones.
It's been fine recently, but yeah.
I'll redirect.
I was playing like 0.5 death threats a game on Iron Fist.
The original part of
from your allies or from your enemies?
Prompt, I suppose, like thoughts
Poor
about
Yeedle,
balance. We're gonna turn to Yeedle in a moment. Yeah, redirect the conversation ever so slightly, because Avril gave his little spiel on balance and like the misconceptions with it. I think the way I would say it is my hot take, I guess, back in Overwatch 1 was in the height of Blizzard must balance the game better, everyone thinking that's going to solve problems, and I was pleading not to balance based on win rates, and kind of a strange, controversial take, because people are like, well, what a stupid idea, why would you do that? And
I don't remember anyone saying it was stupid not to balance based on win rates. Like, I don't remember anyone saying that to him. Like, tell me if I'm wrong there, but I don't remember that.
Is for skill to reward ratio to make sense. That's what I care about much more. I don't care if some characters I don't care if Sim is situational. Please make her situational, because I don't like seeing quick play. There's no iteration where I'm like excited to see a Sim camping a corner and just kind of
I think Overwatch fundamentally was torn between TF2 and what Overwatch was. Overwatch had kind of been like 3 games over its lifespan. It's been 5v5, it's been 6v6, and it's been build/break 6v6 mode right? It's been TF2, NG, Spy, Engineer, all those type of things, right? That kind of like builder and breaker archetype, I don't think that ever worked in the game. I think they removed it, but there were leftovers of that for so many like ridiculous amount of years, and they never really, once they got rid of it, and it took them ages to get rid of it. Remember, it's like 2019 before they got rid of Torbjorn's level 3 turret and bunker and stuff like that. And it's like they were so reluctant to, and then they didn't do the things necessary to make it better after that, right?
It's just like a little stats demon, where as a frontliner, it's no more. I'd actually rather get kidnapped by Wolverine, honestly. At least this guy's going on a flank.
Rivals fans have told me they prefer it over Overwatch because they can say slurs, no doubt. Definitely allow Rivals fan base of this is Overwatch without DEI and woke. No, genuinely there is. Yeah, like I agree entirely.
He does this radical BS, whereas Sim is just I camp in front. And now I say that, and I abuse Torbjorn, one of my top picked characters, but he's another one.
Which, to be fair, I do respect that Rivals gives you big asses just unapologetically. I do respect that. They're not the coy boys like Blizzard are, giving you fucking tweets about Kiriko's grippers and being like, oh, they over the shoulder the pose, we did that by accident. Oh, we didn't want Tracer to be sexual. Like all of that kind of things. It just like it's just a very corporate kind of thing that I don't like. I do appreciate Rivals just like, this is our target audience. It's 13-year-old males. Here's another skin, by the way. Please buy it.
I just feel like they overstated him so that people who barely play him, like that's the problem with these characters, is they're kind of unpopular. So not many people are abusing these corny picks. But then when you do, like, my issue with balance, and where I will push back against little Avril's rant, largely we agree. But a way that I do think it affects the game is if you're a plat and below Genji player and the enemy just picks Mei, Torb, Sim, Moira, like you just have a horrible time and it's not fun. And I don't think that is the same feeling in Marvel Rivals, in fact.
Just counterpicking. I don't
well,
know
if you balance the game in order for the top 10% to be competitive, like if we look at a Sim one trick and we say, well, you have to be able to get to top 500, otherwise there's something fundamentally wrong with the design of the game and it's unbalanced. Well, then she has to have stats that are going to dominate a Genji in silver. That's how it's going to work, and that's kind of been the design of the game since Brig, I would argue, or actually Valk. Right?
I think there's genuine ways to balance the peaks and the valleys of character performance as you go up the ranks, and actually balance the skill to value curve in a meaningful way that is not like this. Spallo had to police his chat for this podcast, kept telling his chat to be respectful to Fredo. Oh, that's interesting.
Like, we want supports to be able to easily overpower things. That's a bit of a gap between Marvel Rivals and Blizzard's support design, I feel. Whereas over time, and especially now in Overwatch 2, supports just are DPS. Whereas in Marvels, they're easy, but wouldn't say they carry the game. They carry the game with old economy, they're nerfing that a bit, but it's not like you just easily look at a thing and fry it the way that a Moira can with a Genji, or like a Kiri can.
Sure, but that's because there's such easy value available on main doing like random stuff, right? You can't even go on an off angle on a support in Rivals. Like, that's bad, right?
Maybe they'll add that later, who knows? But
yeah, to be fair, we started immediately by saying Fredo's been talking for the last 10 minutes. Yeah, to be fair.
Issue I have with trying to balance.
I actually think Fredo has quite interesting thoughts. Sorry, I keep pausing. I think Fredo has quite interesting thoughts, to be honest, for the most part. I don't think he's I think he's talking pretty cogently, for the like he's just going on a bit long.
Kiri can't. Maybe they'll add that later, who knows? But that's the issue I have with trying to balance the game. Like, I don't care if your niche hero is never as good as a Tracer on a competitive level, because I want bans, right? So if you have a hierarchy of characters where there's a handful that are the highest skill expressive.
Yeah, but if you do that, you're just putting more characters in the bucket of have to be banned at certain ranks. And you can't just always do that. You like the banning system is a band-aid so that you can do the balancing when you fuck it up. It's not there so that you can just put a load of heroes into this box if they're oppressive at the low rank or oppressive at the high rank, because then you never fix it and there's more and more heroes going into the box of the bucket. Rivals already has 3 flyers, a Wolverine, a Hela, and like 3 different supports that we want to ban. Like, come on, man. Like, realistically, you can't just keep putting them in the damn bucket. It's not okay. Fair criticism that SVB existed to interrupt Fredo on his rants. He's still new at this, and hopefully improvements are made to let his guests speak more. Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I don't think this is an easy thing to do, right? I want to talk about these things. I'd probably end up ranting if I started one of these. It's the reason why I haven't. But yeah, Fredo, you still have that I'm being held hostage. Look, he's just glaze. The point is, right, you're doing a podcast like this. You want people to be interacting with each other and responding to each other, right?
Characters, and they dominate the top tier game. add bans, and then maybe you can get some of those niche picks that are more interesting. Marvels is a bit of an advantage with this, where they could have a wacky team up, which then sort of adds another power element later. But
and it's hard because if SVB was hosting, right, this guy here was SVB, then Yeetle would feel like he could interrupt Fredo. But since it's Fredo podcast, I don't think he feels like he can, which kind of probably is stifling people interrupting.
Anyway, that's how I'd prefer it. It's my little spiel on balance. I think Overwatch is too far gone into the individual agency maximum competitive viability across the whole roster to go back to what I want. So I'm just gonna take a step back and let you all do you with the all of the Giga heroes in Overwatch, and let the two games flourish. Anyone want to respond to that directly? Otherwise, I want to give you.
Sorry, anyone want to respond to that directly? I have no idea what you just said over the last 5 minutes, Fredo. What was your point? Please tell me. And he just like goes on unhinged rant. Anyone respond to that? Sorry. I'm being too mean to him. Like, it's hard to know the podcast, but still.
Chance to chime in because he's been just patiently, adorably sat. I've just been staring at just how handsome he is with his nice hair.
I've interrupted like 5 people already. I'm just gonna shut up.
You wanted Yeetle's take on balance too, right? You weren't just directing it at me.
Yeah. Yeetle's take would be great.
Okay, I had to write it down so I wouldn't lose track. But my
during my 15-minute break,
my take on balance, the 3 things.
Laughing so much.
Is 1, I don't think there should be a hero that like gets an insane amount of free value. Think like Overwatch 1 release break. Like that's an insane amount of value for low effort. So I don't think it should be like that. Second, most things shouldn't get to a point where there's no answer for it. Like for individual hero levels, for example, Zen's Discord. Back in the day, he could apply to Discord, and there was nothing you could do about it. You could break line of sight, Discord's still on you. There's nothing you could do about it. I think that's also very bad for the game in terms of balance. Maybe you can argue Widowmaker too, but that's another thing. And then the last thing is, if you can get top 500 with a hero, your hero's fine, I think. And an example of a hero that you couldn't do that with was released Lifeweaver. Nobody got Grandmaster with him until he got buffed. So I think those 3 things are important for balance, but otherwise, like I think the community is definitely too focused on balance. Like you say, like the game should be fun.
I don't think that's what Spilo meant. I think Spilo meant that people should, like, can people respond to the idea that rivals shouldn't be balanced because it will cut down the diversity in the game of Overwatch, and the types of characters that can exist will be more boring as a result in rivals. I think that's it, and I think Fredo's made this exact claim before, and I completely like refute it. Like, Wolverine is not healthy in the game, and just because you can ban Wolverine does not make the game healthy, because when you get to a Diamond Plus lobby and nobody bans Wolverine, what happens, chat? Like, seriously, guys, what happens immediately? Someone picks him, someone dominates the game, someone completely bullies your tank, and nobody fucking enjoys themselves. Like, that's very simple. It allows you a leash, but it doesn't come in the way of balancing or replace the balancing.
And yeah, that's my take about
it. One trick getting top by zone does not mean a hero is fine. It's an okay litmus test. I think you kind of get his point. I don't think he means it kind of literally when he was talking about Lifeweaver.
Lifeweaver example, because his win rate was actually positive in the bottom ranks. Bottom ranks. Okay. Metal ranks. Don't let me interrupt. Yes, terrible hero at the top.
Was it?
I don't know, 30%, let's say. But interestingly enough, because he's so mechanically easy, and it's just so forgiving. So you compare the skill output or the overall stat output of a bronze Ana compared to a bronze Lifeweaver just picking up for the first time. It's like it's as if you don't have a support versus a support that you kind of can't miss. Like that's the reality. I don't know. I feel like in Rivals, what I just said, if I said that about characters, there wouldn't be a hate forum of how I'm alienating X, Y, and Z player base and bullying them into a corner. Like, so on one hand,
what is happening in Spilo's chat during this stream? I so wish I'd loaded up Spilo's one with the chat on the side so I could watch it, because he is having a fucking laugh.
Spilo has the negative experience of the Rivals audience. I think a positive is we don't necessarily baby the feelings of individual, the Mercy mains of the world or whatever. They don't get their own Reddit, thread, just like based on the state of Mercy. At every moment, we're like watching it like the stock market. Okay, like is she playable or not? Like, we better do something, Blizzard. Like, I don't know. Like, I always wanted the formats and other complexity added to make the nuance of the game have complexity, but I think it's also just because I played so many games like this, whether it's MOBA games or...
You're arguing about stuff right about now? People are writing long paragraphs? Okay. I can go into Overwatch and play any character to a decent success. I go into Rivals and can't do anything on Mr. Fantastic because he suffers from being a hybrid character, tanks mid damage with DPS. Yeah, I agree entirely with that. Have you seen the... I'll bring it up. I'll bring it up. Give me a second. I'm getting there. There's a fantastic. Where is it? It was last week. It's the Mr. Fantastic 1v1. Oh, I can't find it. It was literally you know the Wakanda escort map. It was on the left side before you get to first point. There was two Mr. Fantastics fighting in a corner, just cycling cooldowns, going into big form, going out of big form, using their fucking refrigerator, waddling to the health pack, going back into big form, just over and over again, just cycling. There was like a 2-minute fight between them. Sorry, it's not as fun when I describe it, but yeah.
Magic the Gathering, I really like draft mode in that too. So I don't want it all to be on an equal playing field regardless. So to be honest, Marvel Rivals is trying their best to not do the thing I want. they're making a lot of buffs that sometimes make me worried a little bit that it's going to get too far away from the fun factor of it and the texture between the characters. Okay. I probably went on too long there. My bad, everybody. I'm a bad host. I tried to do a prayer circle to get SVB back, but the best you got is Baldy. Okay, that's all we got in the Overwatch community.
You're doing fine, mate. You're doing fine.
All right. I think we spent a lot of time on perks, but that's good because it's the thing that's actually out now. We'll run through the rest of the spotlight. Won't spend as long.
I genuinely think that weirdly enough, SCB putting a topic in the middle really added quite a lot to the podcast. Just changing the topic as time went on.
Section, but so next up would be the competitive changes. So we've got bans, map voting, galactic weapons, rank icons, all of these things. Does anyone have really strong opinions about hero bans?
Yeah, I do. I'm not invited on though, am I? Yeah, I have strong opinions on hero bans.
Why would that be a good thing? Why? You mean you're gonna stop me from playing my favorite?
Yeah, I still feel like you're wrong, Fredo, right?
Character? Like, I can't play Mercy in Overwatch?
Yeah, SVB was great because he's genuinely unbiased. Fredo, not so much. Yeah, Fredo just introduced a topic and told people they're fucking dumb if they disagree with it. And then, like, over to you. Are you dumb? Like, just now. Crazy.
That was like the worst idea that you could possibly add. It's a game about hero fantasy. I can't even pick the hero I want. Oh my, what a terrible idea. God,
another thing that Overwatch 1 dev team would have heavily resisted, as I'm sure you know, Fredo. You basically just repeated Jeff Kaplan like verbatim.
Our Lord and Savior, Jeff Kaplan.
Jeff Kaplan wasn't making the fucking game. He wasn't making the video game. He was making PvE for like 4 years. He was lying to everyone. And the only reason why he didn't want to do hero bans, do you know what? The only reason? He didn't fucking care. He's already made the game. He released it. He's on to his next project. That's the simple truth. If they balanced the game, it would have been fine. If they put hero bans in, we would have been stuck banning Brig for 4 years anyway. Like, it wouldn't have changed anything.
The knower of all. Maintainer of
nobody was arguing these points. Spilo on his fence down there, is he? To be fair, Spilo probably agrees with the hero bans. I haven't actually heard his opinion.
To be devil's advocate, because that's why I'm here, would you say that it's more of a reflection of how the player base, video game player base has matured in the same way that our opinions on kit complexity has changed?
No, I'd say that you guys are wrong and I'm correct.
Is this to me or?
Matured how? How have they matured? How have they matured?
As in, okay, so kit complexity is something that we're a lot more open to. Maybe it's just because people are a lot more experienced. I don't know how much of that's true or not, but we're a lot more comfortable with the idea. Like, I'm going to be honest with you guys. Again, I don't have any insight of this. I bet bans were expedited because of Rivals. I mean, have they said that? I feel like Aaron
didn't you interview
Aaron said he wanted to do it a couple of months ago. He wishes hero bans were in when Rivals came out, which definitely means it was expedited.
Gavin?
In my opinion.
No, you interviewed Gavin. Did he not say that?
That was it. The if you can wave a magic wand answer.
No, I don't think so.
I'm pretty sure Gavin said it to you.
Yeah, no, I think he said they felt more comfortable now.
Yeah,
like it became obvious, but they've been teasing it for a while as well. They're like, maybe we'll try it.
So I feel like it's one of those things where like Rivals is running what's the term for it? They're kind of running, they're strafing, whatever. There's a term, somebody in the chat will correct me, but like they kind of are showing case that hey, this can be done well, and then Overwatch takes it and maybe implements it. I mean, it's gonna be all ranks, right? So they're gonna implement it even heavier. So I don't know.
All ranks, yeah. Let's make the bronze players sit for a 30-second wait screen after their 6-minute queue in order to play the video game. Yeah, that's gonna go well. Like, it's just not necessary at some ranks. It doesn't really help at some ranks. You should just actually fix the outliers in these ranks instead of leaving them in and making people ban them. Otherwise, they have a bad experience. Like, I don't agree with it on the face of it. Like, it just seems like you're just being so lazy by just putting in bans and saying call it.
Has the player base matured? Have we just taken us a while to figure out what is actually good? You know, I don't know.
By the way, I'd love if anyone would disagree with me about bans. Nobody does because I'm in my echo chamber and I don't get to talk to anyone because apparently Spilo doesn't want to post the fucking group up podcast. But yeah, low ranks will be the first one to turn against bans and the community starts rallying against them. The low ranks will lead to change. Does anyone disagree with me and has heard my take on hero bans and wants to come to the table? I'll go into the duo channel. You can come in. Refresh me on your take. Nah, I'm not doing the whole take. Think hero bans add some variety? Yeah, I think you don't disagree with me. I think hero bans add variety too. It's definitely good at the pro level. I agree with that. And I wanted them in pugs. Get fucked. You're not getting hero bans in pugs. Otherwise, you'll ban all the fun heroes. And you'll do hate bans onto certain people, and I'll have to moderate beef, which is the least interesting part of my week.
I don't
like
think
this
the player base
question.
is matured. I don't think the player base is matured. I think this is just how the player base has always been. I think one of Blizzard's biggest mistakes, and this is not specifically Overwatch, this is all their games, is historically they've babied their player base.
I wonder why it's an echo check. What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? Like, what? Shut up, random. You're not getting them in pugs. Piss off. You only want them so you can hate ban certain people.
There have been so many examples of games that are far more complex in the same genre that have just outperformed the Blizzard version. Okay, Here's the Storm. One of the excuses that it came out too late. It did come out too late. But also, at the same time, it's like the baby version League of Legends of Dota. League of Legends of Dota already proved that the complex version is successful and people want that. People are not scared of playing complex games. Diablo versus PoE. PoE is giga complex. In fact, I still enjoyed my time playing Diablo 3. I enjoyed my time playing a little bit of Diablo 4. But PoE in its entire lifetime and Diablo 2, ironically, proved that people want complex games. Like, when you kind of went backwards, I don't think we have matured or evolved. It's like, Diablo 2 in many ways was more...
Overwatch is complicated, Avril. It's only not complicated if you remove all the tank characters like you fielded in the past. The interesting complexity is the interlinking between the heroes and the interaction between the heroes, not adding random contextual bullshit into the game that may or may not be in the game at any time. Something, team up, something, perk, something, hero bans.
More complex in Diablo 3, right? I think we can all agree on that. So it's like, I don't know, the play base didn't mature, it just always was that way. Marvel Rivals proved that we can have more bloated kits with more buttons, and that's fine as well. We can handle hero bans. Hearthstone was like the baby Magic the Gathering. Like every single Blizzard game is the baby version of some other game. Maybe the exception of WoW is like the only thing that stands on its own is like, yep, that's the peak right there.
I think other MMOs were more complicated though, or at least like less user friendly for sure.
My point is, like, there are so many examples of games, and this is...
Blizzard has always simplified and refined genres in order to make them more accessible to the public. I agree that more complexity can exist, but I don't think that competes well against simpler games. I would say that Blizzard definitely worked better 10 years ago, when realistically the average consumer barely even owned a PC, yet alone anything else. And nowadays people are much more like, gaming is so much bigger in culture that the culture is much more permitting for complicated games. But I wouldn't say Rivals is complicated. I'd say it's it adds redundant complexity that only detracts and doesn't add, right? Hero bans are good for averaging out the joy curve of games. The bad ones aren't as bad, with the good games not being quite as good, because sometimes you can't play your main, but this discourages OTP, which I think is a free swap game, and with this such a large roster. I think that OTPing is a important part of games. I don't think you can really remove OTPing from these type of games. I think people, for the most part, and this has always proved itself, play the game in order to play the character they want to play. I think this is, to be clear, less in Rivals, but it's still entirely there. That for the most part, people want to play Cloak and Dagger. Piss off, don't make me swap off my Cloak and Dagger. It's something that's happening. If you ban Spider-Man, the Spider-Man mains are going to riot. Like, it's just a thing that happens. People extremize themselves, make their own communities. It's something you actually want in your game. I definitely think it's bad to be able to ban mains. I think that's understated as a bad thing. But the other side of it is that I think the real argument towards hero bans for me is to do with developer intentions and whether banning things actually fixes the problems it claims to fix, to be honest. Blizzard takes something and refines it to its base elements and adds to it over time. Work all day, come home, play the hero I want in my video game. Yep, I don't want to work all day, come home and have Ana banned because they're good in high rank, and the high rank community told the low rank community that Ana needs to be banned this week, so they started banning Ana. Like, that doesn't seem enjoyable to me.
Especially true when there are more popular games in the same genre that prove that the actual more complex version is the better version, more popular, and that people are not afraid to play the more popular version. So now Overwatch is like, you know what? We don't need to baby our audience the way we did in Overwatch 1 anymore. We can lean into more of a complicated game. Now there's perks. Now there's bans.
It's
now
not
we're doing
complicated.
things
It's
that
not complicated. It's just redundant extra stuff put on top of it. You can't you can't pack more stuff into the most complicated genre in the world. It just comes out the other end and people don't understand it, or it turns out to be bullshit instead of fun things. Complexity is understandable complexity to most players.
a little bit more, you know, risky.
I can heal as Mercy, and people have healed as Mercy for thousands of hours without getting bored. That's because we're playing Dark Souls, right? We're changing the level terrain, we're changing the enemies, we're changing the encounters, we're sculpting unique encounters, we're not changing the hero's kit. Like, we're not doing that. It's a very simple combat system that turns out to have loads of hours of enjoyment.
Or for what Spider would consider a more mature audience, I would just say, no, this has been the gaming audience the whole time. We just pretended it wasn't this when it actually was the whole time.
I feel this was a problem in Overwatch 1, where I was like begging them to make a culture around ranked. What should we expect ranked to be? Like, is it okay to one trick for your team? And they sort of just had no opinion, essentially. And they just tried to design the game in a way to make it friendly for those players. But then I think they alienated a lot of competitive players in Overwatch 1, and then maybe got them back in Overwatch 2, where it's...
1 second, I do actually need to respond to this. I don't want to do a Fredo. Anyway, sorry about that.
Really more of a shooter, and we'll see as the next section that we talk about 6v6 how that changes opinions there. But it feels like a slap in the face to me. Like, it reminds me, it would be like if my mentally ill borderline personality disorder ex called me up and said she started doing therapy. Oh, you started? Well, that's wonderful for you. Over here, like, we've got all this other stuff going on. I've been hitting the gym. I play Marvel Rivals now. It's like,
I feel like he's only bringing up hero bands to gloat, and I don't think he's good at, like, I don't think he deserves to gloat, because I don't think he's actually right on this still. I just think it's another me thing where I'm going to be proved right in 6 months. and yeah, hold me to account, by the way, guys. If I am wrong in 6 months about hero bands, 100% hold me to account.
It's been a lifetime ago.
That was a strangely specific and revealing comparison, wasn't it?
That
Going to gym,
hero
playing
bands.
Marvel Rivals now, that's just comedy gold.
Yeah, I mean, my skin's better, their skins are...
Dating profile, plays Marvel Rivals.
Top 1%, 100% swipe rate. Things are amazing over here. So I'm glad that you're beginning to think about maybe trying to implement the thing. It's like, am I bitter? Yes, of course I am. How could I not be bitter about this? Because
You are glad.
it was such a battle to just get the baseline competitive culture of the game, of what game are we even playing. So anyway, that's how I feel about that part of it. Like, I want to try it, but Blizzard has this way of giving you the minimum thing a year or two later than it should have been, right? How long did we take for a roll queue? How long did we take for... It's just like, everything was always so late in Overwatch 1, and even though they're constantly updating the game with Overwatch 2, now there's more competitors. So now it's harder for them to keep up because we actually have hero shooter competitors finally. So you've increased your speed a bit, but they've increased their speed with, you know, an entire world of resources, essentially, with the Disney backing. Are you going to beat Mickey Mouse? You can't do that. Can't beat Mickey. All right, rant over. Yeetle.
Thank God. Okay, you come opinions, please.
Thoughts on all of the competitive updates, just in general, specifically hero bands or whatever.
Somebody said something about hero bands. Who was like, blah, blah, blah. So I know what's happened, right? So basically, the SVB format was, here's a thing. You talk about this thing. Shut up. You talk about this thing. Don't respond to him. You talk about this thing. Then you talk about this thing. The Fredo concept is, you talk about this thing. Then I talk about this thing. Then you talk about this thing. Then I talk about this thing. Then you. Bless. He's so passionate about things. It's kind of endearing, to be honest, to me.
What do you think it's going to do for the game?
Yeah, I think it's long overdue. I think hero bans and comps awesome, and I think, to the point that was made earlier, people that don't want their heroes banned, like, literally just go to quick play. I mean, it's as simple as that. You don't want a competitive experience, you don't have to do it. But yeah, I think it's great, and as I said earlier, I think it was long overdue. And but I am glad it's happening, and it definitely wouldn't have ever happened in the world of Overwatch 1 and the people that were working specifically on Overwatch 1. But it's happening. That's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, Avril yapped some bad opinions earlier. Yeah, he was wrong about a couple of things. I think Avril was the most wrong here.
I don't have too much on that.
Additional hero ban rant for me. when I
Sorry, that got me. Sorry, that got me. It's like he wasn't even listening to Yeetle. He was just preparing his next yap.
I actually don't really care to ban anything in Marvel Rivals. That's the funny thing.
Really?
But I don't know. I just besides Wolverine. And
What
then
are
on
you
top
on
of that,
about? You don't care about anything in Marvel Rivals? Marvel Rivals are a clusterfuck if half these characters are in the game.
I like playing Hulk, which I get to do on rank reset until like it gets banned every game. In my YOLO, it's because I'm not at the SR level where like Hela is oppressive. So they ban Bruce every single. I'm happy that actually the Gamma team up is getting nerfed. I might actually get to play Hulk for once in my career. So I know what it feels like to have your best heroes getting target banned, but that world is so much better because if I feel, well, I don't want to play against Wolverine on this map or something, like at least I can do that. And I think the arc of perks plus bans at least allows them to do that somewhat. It's kind of a weird way to get to the spot I wanted. Like I would have rather the base hero kits be individualized as opposed to balanced, right? So like a hierarchy, but they're going to kind of have that with perks anyway.
I really love Fredo to just give me some examples of the individualization or the unbalancing or the unindividualization through balancing from Overwatch. I'd love it. Like, I've asked people so many different places, just can you give me some examples of what you mean? And they're never able to come up with anything. They come up with Sim and Torb, which are changed for lower rank specifically. Like, sure, I also agree. I'd rather Sim and Torb were left in with a power scaling that was balanced for low ranks. And so let's just say that, like, this is the healthy curve, right? Like, let's put that in red. So, like, this one here is healthy, right? Red is healthy, blue is Sim or Torb. Well, they're better at the low ranks and worse at the high ranks. Do you know what I'd rather they do to Sim and Torb? Instead of allowing them to be banned, I'd rather they move this down and put them there. Or even put them there. So they're okay-ish at this rank and useless at the high rank. I'd rather that. You don't need to ban them in order to do that or for them to exist. You just need to accept that they shouldn't be OP in low ranks. Or to make them have some sort of skill scaling onto their kit or something like that. I think the problem is quite a lot of these heroes were knowledge-based scaling in terms of value. What about someone like Hog? Well, Hog is just a problematic character in general, right? Like Hog can be fixed in 6v6 by making him less selfish. I don't think the selfish tank that insta-kills is a good archetype to be pursuing. And I don't think bans really help that much with Hog. Like, Sure, it does help. You can just ban out Hog if you don't want to play against it. But then again, we're going into that kind of like listicle thing where, well, you can ban Hog. Okay, so we don't have to fix Hog, just leave him as he is. Okay, well, we can put this other hero that's oppressed at this rank. Okay, so don't fix that hero, just leave him as he is. And like, do we ever fix problems? Like, Hog's still a problem if you can ban Hog, right? Like, are we crazy? Like, that's still problematic. Eventually, the bucket's going to fill up and you're going to have some sort of bad experiences that you can't ban, right? Like, it's crazy.
So that effect's going to happen. So I'm excited to see how that works out because ultimately we've seen them try to you were saying this earlier about like the expectations, right? So like the mid-season patch was lacking any big updates. It felt culturally like they were missing the mark, even though they had big things around the corner.
Between Hog, Orisa, and Malga, which would you say are most unhealthy? I hate Orisa and Hog because I usually play Doom. I'd say Orisa's the most unhealthy at the moment. I'd say Orisa has to be bad currently. If you're talking about 6v6, if you're talking about our patch in 6v6, I think probably still Orisa's worse on our Pugs code, specifically because Orisa has way too much power behind the kit. We purposely did it because people weren't using it. If you're talking about 6v6 in the reasonable balance for them to have, I still think it's Orisa. I actually do think this shield is interesting. I'm just scared about it. First we ban heroes, then maps. We ban something else to fix it. We just need more buckets. Yeah, just bigger and more buckets is the other thing, right? Should there be a topic of different balance patches for different groups of ranks be discussed? Assuming Overwatch devs can balance? Well, yeah, it'd be useless because they can't balance. They don't know how to do it. If you could balance, it wouldn't be necessary in the first place. If Blizzard knew how to balance high and low ranks separately, then they could do it on the same patch instead of having it on multiple patches. They don't know how to do it, so it's not done, right? Like Sojourn, right? Sojourn was a pretty simple fix the entire time. I don't know if anyone disagrees with that, but like, everyone knew how to do it, and somehow it took Blizzard 2 years to do it. It just makes no sense whatsoever to me. Just crazy bullshit right there. If you give them a high and a low patch, it's not going to change anything. They're still going to be broken. They just won't know how to fix it.
I think as well, the community has a serious problem where they think balance is going to improve the gameplay. That is not always the case. What balance does is change the winners of the meta. That's what balance does. It doesn't make
No,
this.
no, no. Because if there's certain metas that are oppressive, then they can reduce the interesting things that can be done within that meta, right? Like that. The Sojourn, exactly. Just don't like Sojourn, just better Soldier in it. Yeah, 100%. Like, if we ban Sojourn, or if we balance Sojourn, it allows Soldier and Cassidy and Hanzo and Widow to be played in place of Sojourn. Characters that are too good take over a meta and dominate it in a way that is unfun because the hero diversity or the meaningful choices that you can make that are reasonable has been reduced. Balancing increases diversity, balancing can allow you to make more interesting things in the game, and balancing obviously can increase the quality of matchmaking.
Doesn't necessarily make a diverse game. It might. Sometimes it does. But some people don't want a diverse game. Some people want their favorite things to win. Like, my hero I like to play is now better. Good balance. Well, no, that's not what balance means. But a lot of people think that. All right.
Well, yeah, because balance is the lightning rod. It's like this is what my entire giant Twitter post from months back about balance was all about. It's the lightning rod. It's like, because it's the thing that people complain about. It's like, the reason I'm upset and that I don't like this game is because of balance. Therefore, if they perfectly balance the game,
Everyone's just there yelling at Platts again.
Or like it again. Except you're right. No one actually wants perfect 50% balance. Every single hero is a perfect 50%.
Didn't the relentless pursuit of balance bring us Counterwatch? In what way, shape, or form is Counterwatch related to the relentless pursuit of balance? What? Genuinely, I'm not even sure what you mean. Like, it just seems like and I am very giving to the devs about 5v5. Once they made the choice of 5v5, I really think that quite a lot of the choices they made had to be made. I just think I think the 5v5 restrictions brought us to Counterwatch. I feel like their choices were forced because of the format. Every character having value means hard counters are always an option. Every character having value. So every character has to have value. Therefore, things that are bad need to be improved. I'm not sure if that's true. Even when you're talking about hard counters, when we're talking about Counterwatch, we weren't talking about hard counters. We were talking about a lot of soft counters that could specifically target the tank role, right? We weren't necessarily talking about people countering Ana or stuff like that. In terms of Ana, Malga, and stuff like that, yeah, sure, that was a much harder of a counter, but I don't think balancing had anything to do with Ana Nade being good. I think if you say if we were happy with Ana being bad because we weren't balancing for that role, maybe we could reduce it to 50% healing reduction, and then it wouldn't be bad in that counter. But then I don't think Blizzard really did any of those type situations. I think Blizzard just left it as it is, and it became a problem, right? I think Counterwatch, I don't know. I think the relentless pursuit of balance was a response to Counterwatch more than anything, possibly.
Win rate, because that would be boring. Then you get the really, really dumb takes, like the takes that I saw recently was like, you know what? I don't like Overwatch because it's too balanced. You started seeing those takes, and it really made my brain hurt. I'm like, oh my god, you guys are impossible. It's like, please stop talking. It was really annoying to see that.
Yeah, that's it. And why aren't people responding to this? Fredo has literally made an argument against this in the past. I watched the video. He's made an argument against exactly what Avril's saying, that Overwatch is problematic because it is too balanced and it is homogenized and other things like that. So why isn't Fredo currently responding to it? I'm really confused. Like, does he not believe that thing that he said like a week ago? Or like, what's happening?
Yeah, but it's like, but you're right. People want balance if it means that the heroes that they like are stronger and the heroes that they don't like are weaker. That's what balance means in their minds.
You know, it's
Why is he nodding his head? What is he talking about? He literally argued that... Am I crazy that Overwatch was made boring because of balance? Like, he literally argued that it was homogen. I guess he's talking about the homogenization of the game with balance, but he was arguing, like, I swear he was arguing a second ago about this, and he's nodding. Like, what are we talking about? You can draw a timeline of why this change was made to deal with each aspect of 5v5 balance, which led to this and then that. Yeah, perks are a natural progression of problems that begin with a decision to move to 5v5, Obviously, there's a reason why all the tanks have a survivability perk, and it's clearly meant to stop counter-swapping in a concrete way. It's only necessary because of the 5v5 format for the most part. Don't get me wrong, it's enabled a couple of characters to have some sort of counter-swap kind of like stuff, or some kind of like side grades that allow them to deal with certain things, right? 100%. But realistically, quite a lot of them weren't actual big problems. I mean, Pharah being able to have the shield wasn't necessary. Pharah being able to have the barrage weren't necessary. But you know what? The side grades have allowed them to play a bit more independently, and I'm not unhappy about that. It's just like, yeah, I'm so confused. Fredo was angry because he did not get invited to the Creator Summit. He's already forgotten his criticisms. Didn't he get invited? I assumed he didn't want to. Has he been before? That's interesting.
You say that because I had someone in my recent video, the Is Overwatch Back video, comment that I'm not going to play this game until they fix the balance. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, what version of Overwatch was the fix? Yeah, what was the fixed balance? Like, I can't.
Fredo, you've disagreed with this. Talk. Fredo, you've yapped for hours.
Imagine what their sense of balance is for the game, or the 100 other people that think the same
I
thing.
want everyone that says, "Oh yeah, they need to fix the balance." Okay, what does that mean? Give me the patch notes. You write the patch notes, please. Give me your patch notes. Tell me what it means, because I don't know what it means when people say that.
Yep.
Agreed.
But what? You have specifically said that the things that made Overwatch bad was overbalancing. Not in terms of, obviously, the game's bad because of the balance, but in terms of the diversity of the game is bad because of the balance. Like, what are you fucking agreeing with? You've disagreed with this exact take. Obviously, like, maybe like 10% off in terms of like a sideways movement, but pretty much this exact take. Like, what?
My version of balance is exactly what Fredo was talking about earlier, where risk reward, like, honestly, what 2024 was pretty good at. Rissa in the dumpster, Roadhog in the dumpster, Moira Mercy in the dumpster, Bastion.
Yeah, Spylo's on. For the last, like, I say 6 months, Spylo's been on a real risk-reward tilt. I don't think that's the only thing that you're balancing in the game. I think Spylo's a little bit one-dimensional in the ways he talks about it. Not that anything that he says about this one-dimensional thing is wrong in and of itself.
Dumpster. That's balance. You put the amount of work in, you get the reward. And people don't like to hear that, but that's what...
No, it's fine to have a disproportionate skill to value reward. It's absolutely fine. You just cannot have that on all parts of the kit at the same time while having them be good at the low and the high rank. That's just not possible.
Balances until you have characters that require the same amount of effort, you can't have 50-50 Overwatch.
And my dream for the game was we balance the game that way, but then we add maybe bans so that sometimes those B tier picks can have an interesting highlight moment. Not that they're the one that's picked all the time, every single game, but like, I don't know, we've got this...
But that's not what you think. That's not what you think. We just talked about it, Fredo. Like, what?
Strat with Bastion that we rocket jump him to this part of the map, whatever. Like that would be cool to me, but it's not cool. And
Fredo thinks... No, Fredo literally disagrees with Spylo, right? Surely. He thinks that the Symmetra and Torbjorn would change because their risk versus reward profiles weren't good, and that we should have hero bans. That's what we just talked about. Like he thought that Widow could have the same risk reward profile that didn't match, and that it would be good for hero bans. He doesn't want the hero balance in terms of risk versus reward and skill to value. He doesn't want that. Surely that's what we were talking about when we said diversity. Like, what is happening? Like, what?
And we'll get that with map voting too, finally. Like, I can't believe that it's taken so long.
What do you think
Can I say one more thing on balance?
Yep.
I think the perfect solution to make games absolutely balanced is to introduce a mirror queue. We got goats coming soon. Ranked goats mirror queue. You can only pick the goats comps versus the goats comps. Everything's balanced. You got the same heroes. There you go. That's how you...
Yeah, sure, funny, but like Fredo disagrees with all of this, like extremely passionately most of the time. He was arguing against it earlier. Like, why? How did we get here?
Corpse and mirror queue.
There you go. There you go.
See, then people complain. It's like, oh, but now there's no variety because I made the extremely like. I said that it sounds stupid on purpose. It's this like example that I said out there. I was like, oh, you want balance? Okay, balance would be you play Counter-Strike and everyone's exactly the same. That's balanced. There's no nuance at all. Everyone's exactly the same. Congratulations, you're playing a balanced game. Do you want that? Oh, no. I like variety. I was like, oh, congrats. Well, then you're not going to get a balanced game. What do you want? You can't have it both ways.
All right, Yeatle mentioned the GOATS patch. 6v6. I had an issue with how they...
I think I'm going to cut it there because that seems like a topic change. Man, like, why can't Fredo be consistent? He thinks that balancing like this is a bad thing. Like, maybe he just thinks that, like, we shouldn't balance as a concept. But, like, other people are saying, like, the balance was necessary. So, like, what... Man, I'm so confused by him. I'm so damn confused. Hey, Ogara, how you doing? We hating again? No, we're not hating. We're a good person. Listen, everything's fine. I'm gonna head off. Oh, God Christ. I'm gonna do some work for the video again. I hope everyone's had a wonderful evening. I think I'm gonna be back tomorrow. Don't think he has a solid opinion. Man, you'd hate to watch his videos. You know what? Since we're gonna cut off here, let's go look.
For the longest time, we've argued against hero.
Players of Overwatch are mad about today were lost years ago. in a battle that I was laughed off the stage for, because what I said was, allow heroes to be unique, do not balance them, but add hero bans for competitive diversity. That is a battle that I went head-to-head with to the game director himself, Jeff Kaplan, in a blood feud. That is a battle that I lost with the esports community. Many content creators that I would call friends today laughed me off of the stage. What a ridiculous idea.
I mean, they're also arguing for the lack of balance, but they were saying that the balance reduces. Am I just getting confused here? They were saying that balance increase. Maybe I'm crazy.
It's a competitive game.
Maybe I'm crazy.
Fredo, are you stupid? And my whole argument about 6v6 is that it was irrelevant. What matters more is the design of the characters, because they can make the same Overwatch 2 mistakes that you hate in 6v6. For context, I want to show you guys just 2 examples of the craziest things I've seen in this game, stuff that simply wouldn't have been allowed in the Overwatch community. The point is, we had crazy things in our game, but we went down a design philosophy of balance and try to normalize everything and make it make sense and make Symmetra be as competitive with Tracer and make all of the elements equal when we could have had a diverse game, which is what I had asked for. Look here what happens to my Punisher. The enemy Strange casts a...
Cool. Okay, let's go back.
How they announced this? Like to play is now better. Good balance. Wait, no, that's not what balance means. But a lot of people think that. All right.
Well, yeah, because balance is the lightning rod. It's like this what my... You know what? I don't like Overwatch because it's too balanced. You started seeing those takes, and it really made my brain hurt. I'm like, oh my god, you guys are impossible. It's like, please stop talking.
Does not like surely he wants to respond to that, right? He thinks balance is bad in Rivals, and he thinks we shouldn't balance Rivals. And then Avril's saying people think that Overwatch was bad because of balance, and he's like, we need to stop. They're wrong about that.
It was really annoying to see that. Yeah.
So Overwatch is good because, like,
you're right. People want balance if it means that the heroes that they like are stronger.
I don't know, man. Like, maybe I'm going insane, but I feel like this is definitely something he wants to respond to, and not something he wants to sit there and let happen around him. I don't know. Anyway.